Sorry, that is my fault. I forgot to switch off the audio thing. That's the same bug we were having yesterday. I just completely forgot to do the fix I have for it. Anyways, as I was literally in the middle of saying, General Leo is the only party member you can get who actually functions. He'll actually level. You won't be able to equip him. You won't be able to give him relics or spells, but you can actually have him there and have him level and have him function without bugs or game crashing or anything. This fact is one of the reasons why so many of us assumed that the original intention was for General Leo to join the party at some point in time. However, having read interviews since then and having dug into the code since then, it's kind of like the rumors about Eris was supposed to keep going after her death. It is not true. The intention all along was for Leo to die, no matter what. That was pretty much one of the default things, because it was such an integral part to Kefka's story and signified a significant turnover point in the overall thematic point of of FF6 in general. In other words, it was there to emphasize that, no, really, the old world is actually dead as of now. The Empire is no longer the threat. The soldiers are no longer a threat. This is no longer about the evil Empire versus the good returners or anything like that. This is now about Kefka, Gestalt, magic, Smirk. That's what he does. That's the stop spell he casts right there. So this is officially bad, because now this is a thing. They're stuck here. So I actually have to kill these guys whenever stop runs out. So I'm just gonna hang out here for a minute. So how about that sports ball? Good news is they can't layer Smirk. By the way, that's just even more terrible. I mean, ignoring the fact that those enemies look horrifying, ignoring the fact that stop is one of the most irritating status effects in the game, they cast a spell to irritate you called Smirk. You bastards. Did I lose chat? By the way, someone say something, if I still have chat. Alright, we're gonna focus on him first. And we're gonna wait till Shadow comes back to go after the Misfit here. Thank you, Wraith. Okay, so I am officially back on chat. And yes, psychotic, it's not like those bastards. Yes, Little Billy, they are more or less literally that. Now, the only good thing about Misfits is they actually, like I said, they're actually pretty weak, relatively speaking. They have low health, low defenses, they just screw you over. Setzer's awesome, man. You set him up as a mage type, he's a death machine. Fun fact, you can also set Setzer up as a melee type, although that requires an item that's actually in Kefka's Tower to do. But if you do it, it will crush. I mean, you can actually do more damage with Setzer than you can with anyone else in the entire game. That's not a joke, by the way. Shows off, yes, I absolutely have recommendations for you if you're going to get a gaming PC. My recommendation is do not get a prefab. You will pay more money for a prefab, and it will be worse than if you get your own, than if you build your own. If you're really interested in making a good PC, always build your own. I've recommended this for nigh unto 2 decades at this point. Do not get a prefab. Build your own. If you don't know how to build your own, there's no shame in admitting that. Do you have any friends who know how to put it together? If you don't, there are places you can go to for a small fee and actually say, hey, I want you to put these parts together for me. You can do that too. But in all honesty, putting a computer together is not actually that hard. Trust me. There are a few things that you need to know, and it's easy to ruin it to the point where it's completely destroyed. But at the same time, if you know what you're doing, yeah. And yeah, nowadays you have the internet, so you actually have, nowadays, so you can actually look it up and see exactly how to install the motherboard and the CPU and all that fun stuff. And most of these pieces come with manuals as well. So yeah, that's my recommendation on that one. So this is how we can get back. Notice that the level design literally forces you to walk down here, so you can hit, how to go back, and it defaults to no for going. I love that. That's some really good game design there. It ensures, literally requires you to realize you can leave the dungeon at this point, and it makes it so that if you're mashing A, it's defaults to no. Ocarina of Time. Excuse me. So, this, I like this. This, we're going to do a save state here, because I want to show something off here, okay? First of all, it's called Atma Weapon. Second of all, it's this giant behemoth-looking thing with 8 legs. It has this massive speech before it. It's got brand new music. Yeah, this is awesome. This is actually one of the cooler fights in this game, in my opinion. Now, we're going to fight him normally first. I'm pretty sure we got this. But we'll see how this works out here, shall we? Oh, he should actually be doing Bolt. So he casts spells that you shouldn't have seen up until this point in time. It is possible to, but yeah, he casts some big spells. He also has a unique attack just to him, which we may see here. Love this fight. The first time I fought this guy, way back in the day, very first time I ever played this game, this guy wrecked me so hard. I spent, I don't know how long, and I mean I spent a long time trying to beat this bastard. Right now I'm just unleashing on him. He's got a bit of health. He's got 30,000 or 35,000, I forget which health, but he's got a ton of health. He's got a lot of mean attacks too. This is gonna hurt. Ugh, yeah. Oh shoot, she doesn't have life. Come on. Because of how hard Atma Weapon hits, it's generally considered acceptable strategy-wise to not try and outlast him, to just nuke through him. K, you roll a d6, and you add that to your roll. That's all you do. So 1 to 6 is going to be added to your roll for an AP. I'm going to go get a full cure here. No, you cannot skip the fight with Atma Weapon without a walk-through walls code. He also knows Quarter. Again, a lot of spells you really shouldn't have seen yet, which you will be seeing in the future, funnily enough. And yeah, this is one of 3 places in the game, I want to say, that this song plays. Oh shoot. Okay, he didn't. He can do that as an AoE. When you fight the other... Oh no, I'm sorry. There's actually 4 more times in this game. Excuse me. There's 4 other times you hear this song. Once with the other Atma in Kefka's Tower, and once each with the 3 statues in Kefka's Tower. Those are the 4 other fights you fight this bastard. Or excuse me, where you hear this song. I'm saying that wrong. But yeah, this is what I usually refer to as a big boss song. No Metal Gear reference intended. In other words, most RPGs, especially the older ones, kind of layer their fights like this. There's normal fight, there's boss, there's big boss, and then there's the last bosses, plural. Okay, so now I want to show off something else. Actually, you may or may not be aware of this, but did you know you can actually kill this boss by killing his MP? I don't know why, but once upon a time I had it stuck in my head that that was the only way to kill him. I don't know why, don't ask me. So I actually went out of my way once upon a time to sit here and rasp away at like 100 a hit his 30,000 mana. It was stupid and dumb, and I don't know why I bothered to do that. There is another way to beat him, though. I just wanted to show that off. That glitch, if I'm not mistaken, does not work in the GBA version. That is it's not a glitch. It's so much as a unintentional byproduct of certain aspects of the code. For those of you not aware of what just happened, the vanish stat makes it so you cannot avoid spells. In other words, and that's on purpose. In other words, if you are vanished, you cannot magic block, right? Magic spells always hit you. However, Doom is a magic spell, and therefore, even though Doom shouldn't work on him, it will because he's vanished. Now, that vanished Doom will actually not work on every boss in the game, but there is something else called Vanish X Zone, which will work on virtually every boss in the game. There's only like 4 bosses in the entire game where Vanish X Zone will not work on them. So, yeah. You're thinking of Condemned. I did. Okay, so we have defeated. I wanted to defeat Atma legit first before I showed that off. And yeah, I didn't know about that trick until way further into this. Bzz. So, it's time for the big cutscene. First of all, there's the 3 statues. I forget which one is Sephiroth. I forget the other 2's original names. I just remember Sephiroth. So this is pretty much Gestalt. Oh, damn, Kay. This is Gestalt in a nutshell right here. He has ruined the world. His war has damaged 5 separate nations of this world have been damaged and ruined and broken, and countless lives lost because of his war because he wanted to own the world. Because it was his, and he wanted it, and it was mine, damn it. As we've already talked, I've already talked about this, but I'm just re-emphasizing. This is Gestalt's mentality in a nutshell. And after all that, it wasn't enough. He wanted more. Make her spit on you, he wanted more. And so he wanted to go ahead and absorb even more power. He found the Espers. He had Magitech. That wasn't enough. He discovered what Magicite is and started taking in the power of the Espers, literally consuming Esper's life essences in order to empower himself. Remember, thank you, Kay. Remember, Gestalt can cast Flare and Murton. How many Espers died and were consumed by him in order to give him that power in such a short period of time? And then even that was not enough. Gestalt wanted to be the one person who was the single pinnacle element of the entire world. Gestalt is the freaking embodiment of greed. Even Emperor Mateus from Final Fantasy II, who, in my opinion, is probably one of the best examples of ambition personified. Even he doesn't quite equal the sheer gluttony, thank you, Kay, the sheer gluttony of Gestalt here. He is a disgusting individual. And when we come to him, Celis will show up in this cutscene no matter what. If you don't bring her, she will hop on. You'll see it, Aded. Just give it a moment. It'll cast it during the cutscene. It's basically the first or second most powerful spell in the game, depending on how you define it. It's a damned strong spell. Murton, yeah, we'll see it. You and Kefka were given life to serve me. It is your birthright to rule the world with me. This is possibly the only hint in the entire game, by the way, that might indicate Kefka's past. I've already mentioned that she was a product of eugenics, right? Breeding specifically to create someone to become a Magitech Knight. And this is referencing that right here. It is possible Kefka was the same, that Kefka was also eugenically bred specifically for this purpose. But the line here that Gestalt is basically giving and laying out is that, and you have to understand this. This is not Gestalt saying, rule the world with me. This is Gestalt saying, you should be honored to be at my feet. Not at my side. You should be honored to be my servant. To be someone who I have deemed worthy enough to serve me willingly, as opposed to the rest of the world, which gets to just be trampled underfoot. Forgive me for re-emphasizing this, but Gestalt is just a disgusting human being. So Kefka, now this, Baronessa referenced this yesterday, and I wanted to save that for this moment. This I mentioned earlier that Kefka went over the deep end when he got to the top of the ladder. I had a whole speech about that, right? There's one final thing that truly makes him snap. Because at this point in time, there is one thing Kefka knows and has known pretty much as long as he remembers. Servitude. Kefka, at this point in time, is still, to an extent, loyal to Gestalt. And Gestalt, and I was just about to say that, Kay. Gestalt is vain or deluded, take your pick, enough to think that he can actually contain something like Kefka. Now, do I think Celis was tempted by this offer? No. I don't think even for a moment Celis was tempted by this offer. Honestly, I think the whole reason that Celis pauses and gives this consideration is she's coming to realize just how disgusting the two people in front of her really are. And she is completely overwhelmed by it. This would also be an awesome scene. I have a personal wish. If they ever redo this in full 3D awesome, the sword that she just stabbed through Kefka, for the rest of this scene, I want that sword to still be there. I want the sword to still be present, sticking out of his chest for this entire scene. And he just completely ignores it, because at this point he is so magically powerful, he doesn't give a damn about that kind of a thing anymore. Remember how I mentioned that I feel like Kefka went off the deep end before this scene? This is my note to this. Kefka has one last, and I mean one last connection to the world, and that is his his servitude to Gestalt. But note that Gestalt is still present when Kefka decides to do something that he knows will wreck the world. Because he doesn't give a damn. I mean, granted, this is a strong amount of petulance, but he just does not care. Now, this is a beautiful scene. So, this is kind of badly translated, but basically Gestalt is saying, have you lost your mind? You can't do that. And Kefka's response is supposed to be, like, shocked and a little bit hurt. What are you saying, Emperor? I'm trying to show them the meaning of power. And Gestalt says, no. And then Gestalt says he's going to go ahead and kill him. This is not put you to sleep. This is not trying to... He is actually going to kill Kefka. And Kefka just starts laughing. Now, this is beautiful because Kefka is not just laughing. Kefka is not laughing because he knows that he's in the field and absorbing the magic. By the way, just as an aside, if anybody ever doubts that Kefka has an intelligent and cunning mind, he observed and noticed this effect that's about to happen when no one else did. This is one of the only times they really showcase the kind of intellect he has, but there it is. Kefka's laughing because this is literally the last straw. The one and only connection he had to anything at all was Gestalt. And that's just sad and pathetic if you think about it. And Gestalt, of course, is going to kill him. So Kefka just laughs. I mean, how could he not? It's funny. It's so funny that the only thing he thought he had that mattered doesn't. So Gestalt opens with Fire 3, or Firaga if you prefer. Flare, which we just saw Atma Weapon use. Nope. And at this time, Kefka knows exactly what he's going to do. So then he casts Murton, which is Meltdown, which is a damned strong spell. Doesn't do anything. Not a damned thing. Gestalt, who up until this point has been so arrogant and so deluded and so vainglorious that he assumed he was in control of the situation, for the first time is starting to realize just how underclassed he is. And Kefka literally just punches him, or kicks him, depending on how you perceive that. Just punk. Screw you. You fool. Some people have asked why it is the statues respond to Kefka. There are many theories about this. I would love to hear your guys' theories. I have two, both of which I look at equally. Remember how I mentioned the theory that whatever warped Kefka back when he was first experimented on was making him attuned to magic? And that's actually why Kefka gets stronger throughout the course of the World of Balance, because as more and more magic is becoming relevant to the world and magicite is becoming a thing and the espers are becoming more active, Kefka is therefore is more or less a conduit of magic. And thus, through that conduit, he can, if not completely control, then at least direct the statues and the energy of the statues. The other option? Well, we don't know much about the statues in terms of their personalities, but we do know they were willing to wreck the entire planet just because they didn't like each other. And when they discovered they had wrecked it, their method to try and make everything better was to bail. So what I'm saying here is that I think the statues are bastards. And maybe they saw something of a kindred spirit in the psychotic Kefka. And he just kicks his corpse along. And for 1 second, just 1 second, hey Will, he's like, poor old, oh well, what a worthless excuse of an emperor. I agree with what Kefka, or with what Kay just said, Kay Blarg there. This line right here is probably one of the better translated lines in this section. This emphasizes really what Gestalt wanted. He didn't want to be ruler. He didn't want, we talked about this yesterday, he doesn't want to rule like Thrawn does. He wants the benefits of rule like Sibyoth does. He wants to be worshipped. An ordinary old man with his gluttonous levels of greed and avarice wanted the whole world to bow in adoration and supplication. And that's his final plea to Kefka, who shoves him right over the edge. Fuck you, Gestalt. You got what you deserved. I like to think that he was alive the whole way down. Now, for those of you not aware of the significance of this, the three statues were in perfect magical balance and harmony with each other to help seal magic off. Kefka knows that, by the way. So yeah, this is all clearly building up to an awesome boss fight of awesome, right? Now note how Shadow, remember how I mentioned how he's skilled, how that's basically his shtick? Note how Shadow goes out of his way to not attack Kefka. I mentioned that because attacking Kefka at this point would basically be suicide. And again, I love the idea that the sword is still sticking out of his chest. So Shadow doesn't attack Kefka. He goes after the statues and tries to pin Kefka, literally pin Kefka in the statues, which disrupts the power. And I like that line, go, there are people counting on you. By the way, I'd just like to point out once again that I have Realm in my party, which really, really helps sell this scene. A lot. He's just randomly doing it, and Nero says, hey Braven, welcome to the best scene in the game. Well, one of them. I shouldn't even say scene, this is like a huge section. So the moment this happens, okay, the moment we're pushed out here and there's no boss fight, everyone in the world who is playing this game for the first time that I know was like, wait a minute, where's the boss fight? Oh, god damn it. I shoot. Naughties, I hate naughties, these are terrible. And you can't run away from them. And they eat ice, that's what they eat. I knew they eat something, hang on. Screw it, we'll just do this. We'll show off the lightsaber a little bit. The light dagger at the moment. So then this song plays. This song is called Catastrophe. It's called that for a reason. In other words, the idea here is everything is wrong. The point is the player at this point should be thinking, wait a minute, something's messed up here. There we go. I need to set up a little bit better here, especially under these circumstances. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Do that. Nope. I want Atma there. No, this is the only one, Samurai. That's slightly different, Samurai. I forget what that one's called. Well, see, that's an easy answer, Nerozaz. Remember, the statues have already been destabilized. That's the really horrible thing about this. And that's how beautiful about it, because you don't really realize that until your second time playing, unless you're really thinking about it. It's already over. We've already lost. The world is already about to be crushed like a bug, because the statues have already been destabilized. 80% humid. I'm so sorry, Bragman. You can come hang out here. It's not very humid here right now. Hey, Fearsome. Well, see, no, Night Dawn, because the moment this happened, I started saying, wait a second. And again, that's what I'm trying to get across. At this point in time, it's like, something's off here. You know, everything about this felt like a last dungeon up until he moved the statues, and then we started running away, and it's like, wait, this doesn't fit the pattern anymore. This isn't how this is supposed to happen. And it's like, and I didn't know what to make of this, and so I'm just running, panicked. I didn't realize at the time that it's actually really, really easy to get to the end of this section with tons of time to spare. So I'm not exactly in a hurry. I have actually failed at getting to the end once. It's not a commonality for me. And that was during a speed run too, when I was really, really low level. But yeah, so the reason all these monsters are here now is, again, the statues are already destabilized. Kefka has already started, for lack of a better term, mixing his essence, his soul, whatever you want to call that, with that of the statues. So, these are literally fragments, shards, whatever you want to call that, of Kefka's personality. I just realized I could do something to help out this section, and we are going to do that. There we go. And again, note that the continent is literally falling apart as we go. Again, try to picture this in full 3D awesome. This would be so cool, and I mean so cool, to actually watch this huge floating continent breaking apart. And in the like as the camera pans around, because we have 3D, you know, we have the ability to move the camera in 3D in a 3D game. So the camera pans around, and you could see the rest of the continent there, the areas you've already been through, the parts of the dungeon you've already completed, breaking apart in the distance and exploding, and just, oh god, that would be so cool looking. Come on, there we go. You might be wondering why I'm not runicking. It's because Celis is my biggest damage dealer right now. Also, these guys are kind of resistant to magic. And the boss actually has a reflect spell up, so I'm trying to get into the swing of meleeing. I might not go for the elixir. There's an elixir up ahead. Oh, wrong way, wrong way. By the way, I'm not going to write it down yet because I'm on a timer, but this is going to get another story plus, and then another one, and then I think that's it for now. Oh, you ass. Jackass. What's up? Oh, here, let me. Okay. Where's he?
What's your plans? He's like, I want to go and get packing supplies and lunch. I was like, I just ate lunch. I want to get packing supplies. I was like, what do you need? Like boxes and stuff? Like,
So what's he going to the UPS store or something? Or U-Haul? Yeah. Yeah, that's where I got mine when I moved.
It's like, what? Yeah, U-Haul sells boxes and packing tape. Dispenser for packing tape.
Yep.
Everything. You're going to use U-Haul food, right? Yeah. Well, do you want to get lunch then? Not really. I'm sitting outside.
Jesus.
Here you go.
Hey, can you close the door real quick, please? Hey, Blaine.
How's it going, Magus?
What's up?
There are two of us moving now.
I'm very happy about this moving thing.
This building thing?
Yes. Hey, Brother Box. Or did I already say hi? I don't remember. Hey, Blank, can you close the door real quick, please?
What?
Can you close the door real quick, please?
Close the door.
Yeah, I'm streaming. So, okay, I have 30 seconds to do this. I may actually be about. You may be about to watch me fail this for the second time ever. I'm gonna wait for some bad. Okay, that's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. I'm about to. Oh my god, I'm gonna actually lose. I'm actually gonna lose. I'm actually doomed. Oh my god. Because Condemned takes up 20 seconds by itself, and I knew that walking into it. Oh my god. Uh, uh, what do I do, guys? Oh my god, okay. I've played this game a trillion times. I didn't actually know that Narapa would go away if the timer ran out while you were fighting it. But I'm pretty sure Shadow's about to die. Because if I hit wait, I'm pretty sure the world's gonna end. And if I hit jump, then Shadow is dead. By the way, in case you're wondering, this is not one of those like movie deaths. He is dead if I jump. I've never had this happen before. Wow. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and give a plus to the story. I don't think I have to explain why. I am also going to give a plus to the music sound for basically this entire sequence. That counts the upcoming scene. Nope, yep, that's game over. That is the second time in my life I have run out of time on the continent. Alright. We need to switch our strategy up if we're going to be dealing with that kind of garbage, so... Yeah, that's probably one of the most interesting Kobayashi Marus I've ever been in. Right there. Okay. I want you with the Charm Bangle. And... where is it? There it is. I guess I had K, you're right up here, before the ammo weapon. Oh my god. Wow. I am Atma. This is the third time we have met in several minutes. Okay. On whom, Night Dawn? Or do you mean me? That statues are affecting me, guys. Also, hey Deutsch. What's up, dude? So anyways, now we gotta go through this whole cutscene again. That's a good question, Night Dawn. I don't think so, no. It is my opinion that Kefka is having effect on the statues, not the statues are having an effect on Kefka. That is only my opinion. But I have two reasons for having that opinion. Number one, it appeals to me more. Number two, in FF7, one of the deliberate plot points they had was that the ancient, the ancient, powerful Genova alien thing of incredible difficulty that completely wiped out an entire species was able to be subjugated by an individual with sufficiently powerful will, right? This is actually a theme that has been in several of the FF series. In other words, that occasionally there's one person, one individual who is so strong, usually in terms of willpower, in order to make, the ancient Eldritch powers bow before them rather than vice versa. And they're usually the exception. They're like the only one that can do that. I mean, to use the Genova example again, Genova just manipulates and controls everyone and everything else. And it takes tremendous, and in fact, Cloud himself only manages to overcome the Genova in him with a lot of long shots and sufficient help, right? So, in FF6, I think that Kefka is someone with sufficient mindset, sufficient mentality and will, and, well, to quote what Kay said earlier, intensity to his madness, his craziness, his sheer inability to hold back, that Kefka, like I said, Kefka is influencing the statues, not vice versa. So what are the statues exactly? As I said earlier, the statues are intended and named after things that are supposed to get across the idea that the three of them are like the pinnacle core essences of the very concept of magic, the very concept of the fantastical, right? So, yeah, basically psychotic. So, they were originally living beings. They intentionally statued themselves and arrayed themselves in the pattern so that they would balance each other out and nullify each other's abilities and their effect on the world. If the three of them are removed from the equation, then magic is removed from the equation, and that's actually what ends up happening. Kefka actually has absorbed a sufficient amount of power from the three of them that by the end of the game, the three of them are no longer those nexuses of the fantastical, like I mentioned. Instead, that is Kefka becomes the nexus of the fantastical, which has a few implications I'll get to later. If that's not a sufficient answer of what the statues are, I actually don't have anything else to share. Anything else is just pure speculation. Stretch the neck. I guess that's true, Kay. The biggest difference between the statues and Genova in my mind is Genova is designed to be a deliberately alien thing. Effectively the planetary equivalent of a virus, something that does not belong in the natural biological order of what exists, right? Something that should not be a part of life. You with me? The statues are designed to be the nexus point of the fantastical, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But when I say the fantastical, I say that word on purpose. It's not just magic. It's the very concepts of things that are in a fantasy setting. The implication has always been very strong that after this, FF6 becomes a normal world, right? A completely ordinary, real-life type of world. No monsters, no magitech, no space wizards or anything like that. Just a planet. And that's how the game ends. Anyways, this right here, this, in my opinion, is the second to last episode of Season 3. And I have my reasons for that. It is exceptionally debatable, because there's no denying that, like, this entire climax here at the Floating Continent is an episode, and then the very next thing that happens is also an episode. Which one of those is the end of Season 3 or Arc 3 is heavily debated, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, but in my opinion, this is not the end of Season 3. I'll explain my reasoning when we get there, when we get to what I think the end of the Season 3 is. Okay, I've got the Charm Bangle and the Sprint Shoes on. I immediately encounter something, of course, because screw me. We're doing a little bit of a different strategy. Yeah, basically, Kay, that's what I'm trying to get across. So, I don't care if this is cheap. I don't. You can't shame me on this one. Go away. Yeah, it saves time, damn it. I can't believe I actually died to the time running out. Are we assuming a half-hour show or an hour show? Because I've been mentally assuming an hour show this whole time, because that's what my mind defaults to, mostly because of shows like Star Trek and other similar science fiction works. Because that changes things a lot. This would still be Season 3, in my opinion, just not sure how much would be what. Oh, you jackass. If you bring a heavy melee here, or Edgar, literally just Edgar, this whole section's a joke. Edgar's just so damned overpowered. I could solo this entire section with a drill. I'm not even kidding. Okay, so let's assume the standard 48 minutes. Or a 2-hour show. I'm okay with that too. But no, let's assume the standard 48 minutes, okay? With standard American advertising policies of the late 90s and early 2000s. Under these circumstances, I would have basically the first half of this episode. Oh, you jackass! Whatever, I can get by that. 3 episodes per season. I would have it so the first half of this episode basically starts in the middle of the climactic battle with Atma weapon, and then whoops, I didn't actually mean to do that. Just wastes time. And then would conclude, with the defeat of Atma weapon, and then have the massive cutscene of awesome that we just saw, which honestly would probably only be about 20 minutes or so if you do it right, and then have the whole scene like building and building. And if I was doing this, and I couldn't do this because that's not how this worked, but let's assume no one had ever heard of Final Fantasy VI before, so this story's new, right? Which obviously is not true. But let's just assume that. What I would do, and I would go to the network producers and I would beg for this if I had to. I'd be like, okay, guys, I want you to allow me to schedule this episode, the one I just talked about, with the big climactic scene, when the normal season ender would be, and have that scene, and don't do any advertising of it, just have that be where the end season is going to be, and, blah, 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 blah. And then, obviously have it end on the scene that we're about to see happen. Oh, okay, that's okay then. Sure. What am I hearing out there? Okay, we're good. See, now we have 2 minutes. Now that I'm actually being cheap. Wait. Gotta wait for Shadow. Now we just put the controller down for a minute. Or a minute and 50, actually. Okay, so the episode that was supposed to be the last episode of the season would basically be happening. It would end with the scene we're about to see in about a minute and a half here, and then I would have a surprise episode that would come on after that, which would actually be the season 3 ender, which would be all of the island, leading up to and concluding with Celis' suicide, and that would be the end of season 3. Celis falling off the cliff, tears falling off her face, the end. See you next year. See you next season. That's how I would have done it. And this is when everyone in chat goes, "That's a terrible idea! Why would you ever do that?" Or whatever it is you guys are going to say. I'm not sure which. But yeah, that is how I would end season 3 right there. Bamf. I mentioned this because it has been argued that maybe season 3 should end with this cutscene. The world is destroyed and the world was changed forever. Cue credits. And that certainly has a lot of gut punch to it. I personally prefer the difference of the pacing of having the huge gut punch and then having the much more personal, down-to-earth gut punch of the suicide, then cut to credits, and then we'll see you in a year. Especially because that suicide attempt loses some of its impact, especially in a show format, if there's not a period of time after it for the audience to absorb it. You know what I mean? In actual fact, I think that's one of the, I hate to say this, flaws of FF6. They don't give you a chance to absorb the significance of Celis's uh, suicide attempt. So there's Shadow. We saved him. We could have just jumped, but Realm would not leave him behind. This scene in full 3D awesome would probably be the best looking scene in the entire game. I can imagine going to some of the best, CGI directors and designers in the world and just saying, "Do this," and I can actually picture how ridiculously incredible this would look. But one of the things I'm going to say is that even back in the day, even when on the SNES, this scene was well done and really, really got across the point. We literally see the airship chopped in half by the magical outlash as everyone is flung to the ground. As magical destruction is just ripping through the world and the entire planet is literally restructuring it. And this is the beautiful part. And then the music slowly fades. And as we see the planet from space, we watch the continents rip in half in total silence. This scene absolutely gets a couple of pluses. One for the music sound, because of that silence thing I just mentioned. One for the graphics, especially that space shot. One for the story, for being one of the biggest twists I've ever seen in gaming, and one of the best twists I've ever seen in gaming. Everything about that, it's so hard to appreciate it going back unless you really think about it. But try to picture when this game came out. Try to picture how much that just threw everyone for a loop. Oh my God! The world was destroyed. Kefka actually destroyed the world. Oh, I agree, Prog. That would be, yes. Maybe a little less gross, a little less of the red goo gooping around. I never cared for that, but the scene overall, yeah. And so now note this camera angle is very specifically done. You don't see any other landmass anywhere. All you see is this one island. This entire game, from Ultros onwards, has been non-stop bleak, dark despair. And it has just gotten even worse. And will get even worse. Sid has a line here which really, really gets across the horror of this situation. They have had no contact with the outside world. How many of you out there know what isolation does to a human mind? I'm sure many of you do, and I'm sure if you don't, you could put it together quickly and easily. Human beings do not like being isolated. The brain is designed to take in so much input and make sense of such a vast amount of information that when it is deprived of it, everything goes to hell. The mind just starts to snap under its own weight, right? So, and by the way, just in case, because I don't want to go back to Atma, there we go, the mind starts to snap. Now imagine that you are one of, say, 10, 20 people on an island, and that's it. No one else. For a year. A year may not sound like a long time. I want you to imagine what you were doing in September of 2014 and think about everything that's happened from then to now, and imagine that none of it happened because you were stuck on an island with nothing. I want you to imagine being alone, deprived, struggling to eat, struggling to function. They kind of skip over this in the English version because of how nitpicky. Yeah, exactly, Kay. Yeah, there's some really screwed up stuff that can happen thanks to sensory deprivation. They kind of skip over this because of the way North America and Nintendo was about censorship at this point in time. But it's really clear in the original version and the GBA version. There were several people here. Like I said, like 10 or 20 or so people on this island. And then those people just kind of started to die, bit by bit. Some of them gave up. Some of them committed suicide. Some of them starved. Some of them succumbed to disease. I want you to picture someone who's laying in bed and just can't think of a reason to get out of that bed, or whatever it is they had, the ground, and they just lay there, completely devoid of purpose until they die. Until they just close their eyes and don't open them again. The implication here, too, is that Sid has actually been sick for some time, and he has literally been holding on because he was the only one of all the people here who had a reason to hold on. Celis. So, we have an interesting situation here. We'll give you that. And that. Actually, there's a good chance to start leveling up. Do I already have that? Oh, I already have that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, by the way, as Kay points out, it is very likely this was a house that just kind of survived the destruction of the continent. Let's explain, here, let's, shoot, I need to pause the game so Sid doesn't die. Okay, here's the mechanics of the Sid thing, for anybody who's ever curious. Sid, every so many seconds, it's 1 or 3, I don't recall. What do you mean, Night Dawn? She ended up here and so did he. It was RNG. The people who ended up on this island just ended up on this island. He didn't find her. They were just both here. So the every so many seconds, and again, I remember if it's 1 or 3, basically Sid's health, for lack of a better term, falls a step. And the dialogues he has are actually badly translated in English. That's actually a bug. I shouldn't say badly translated. There is a bug. When he gets up to like nearly fully healed, he suddenly starts saying, "Oh God, I'm gonna die." That actually should have been one of the lower ones, not the high one that it is. But anyways, when he hits 0 health, he dies. When he gets to 100 health, I want to say, he lives. There are 4 types of fish that either reduce his health, do nothing, increase his health, or increase his health by a lot. The faster fish are usually the 4th version, and then slower and slower and slower. Some of these fish will actually stop moving entirely. Like, they'll just stop moving and die. That's on purpose. That's actually a deliberate way that they do to try and emphasize just how diseased the animals have become. In fact, there's another thing that they did on purpose, which I've shown off before here, in which they demonstrate just how much this world is dying, which I will show off in a moment here. Alright, I'm putting the controller down, okay? Look at the terrain, by the way. Even the animals on this island are just slowly dying out, and give no experience, by the way. Oh, I mean, they give hardly any experience, hardly any gold. Those enemies are only there for 2 reasons. 1, to get Pearlwind for Strago much later in the game, and 2, to really emphasize just how horrible this is. Notice they weren't attacking me, Sonic. They just stood there until they died. I literally picture a scene in the full 3D Awesome version where you're walking along and there's this animal just crawling along, and it looks up at you, and it just can't actually do anything, and it just falls over, and then it just kind of stops moving after a moment. You guys probably already know what I'm going to do here, and it actually kind of hurts me to do it. But, as I've said more than once, this is how the story should go. And this is, again, how I would end the season if this was a television show. Note the absence of music, by the way. I like that. This is a really good way to emphasize this. This is a good no music scene. By the way, I'm sorry to ruin the mode for a moment, but there is a long-standing theory that this is Palador. And I'll talk more about that in a second. Yeah, exactly, Braglin. It also changes Celis's reaction in a scene, if you think about it for a moment. And there's one final reason that I did what I just did, and it's not just for the significance of the scene, the significance of the next scene, the character development for Celis, the connection to the theme of despair. Cid probably, and I really hate myself for saying this, but Cid probably wanted to die. Cid had watched after her for a year, and that was the only thing that kept him going. It was the only thing that kept him from giving up, just like everyone else. And he had one last thing to live for, and you know what it is. It's that raft that he worked on. He didn't lay in his bed to get better. He didn't just rest like he should have if he cared about himself. He spent his final moments working on that raft so that Celis could get the hell out of here and try. The last thing Cid cared about was Celis. He didn't give a damn about himself. Remember that guilt thing I mentioned way back when we were talking about Cid in the Magitech facility? A man like this does not want to live. So he doesn't. Remember, Celis has had a grand total of 3 people ever that she's actually cared about and who have cared about her in return. Terra, we've already talked about that. Locke, we've talked about that. Both of them are gone. All she has left is the man who who is the closest thing she had to a father. Yeah, exactly, shows off. This man who experimented on her and twisted her into this weapon of war was the closest thing she had to a human connection. This is desperation and despair of the highest order, having lost literally the last thing you had. And the horrible irony of it is it was so pathetic to begin with. Note the game makes you walk up the cliff to where a bird is laying, dead. Now this is a huge dialogue change right here. This is them directly censoring the suicide. Because, take a leap of faith from the cliffs up north. It perked him right up. I think you can imagine what the original and intended translation of this line was. And note that she doesn't leap. Even in her final act, she has no energy to actually care about it anymore. She just falls. Fade to black. Music keeps playing. End of season 3. Credits roll. And I would keep a tight lid on season 4. I would not allow a single thing of season 4 to come out. I would start season 4 here, because this really is one of the most beautiful moments in Final Fantasy VI. Not the most. There's a better one later. So there's Palador. Now, you have to understand, this scene is hard to understand if you're just looking at the English translation. She's literally berating a bird for nursing her back to health. Let me make this clear. That is Palador, an Esper, okay? We need to make that adamantly clear, because it explains a lot about this scene. She did try to commit suicide. She didn't just survive. She was saved by Palador. Now, it's debatable if she was actually nursed back to health, but what is not debatable is Palador realized that simply keeping her breathing was not sufficient. So it got that bandana. How it knew to get the bandana, we have no idea. Here, I knew this song played somewhere else in the game. I knew this song played somewhere else. And so Palador gives her this tiny little snippet of hope, knowing she will take it and run with it, knowing it will give her a reason to keep going, because that's all a human being really needs at the end of everything. Humans can survive the most incredible, insane things. There are stories across all of history of people who have endured things that are beyond imagining. All a human being really needs to keep going is a reason to. And so that's what Palador really did for Celes. He gave her a reason. You need to leave. The others are surely waiting for you. Find the stairs down to next to the stove. Down them lies your road to freedom. And as was pointed out, you know this raft was never designed for 2. Even if he lives, he doesn't go with you. So this would be the beginning of season 4. Her insanely berating this bird. The audience wouldn't realize that was Palador at the time, obviously. Finding the letter, and I would make it clear that the raft is small and crude. No, he didn't, Kay. Goodbye, Sid. Fun fact, that's one of the only Sids to die in FF history, along with Dr. Sid in 12 and Sid in 13. I agree with what you say, Kay, I really do. I just don't think it changes anything. I do think that was the deliberate intent. So, show or game, this really is where Season 4 formally, officially begins. We have kindled a tiny little light in a spot of total darkness. That light will stay there until a second, and then eventually a third light is added to it. There are 2 additional lights that can be added to it optionally. We're actually skipping those this time around because I'm going with a specific leveling strategy. I already mentioned that. But that's still like 5 lights in the darkness. It doesn't really stop being dark and depressing and horrible until, well, you know the scene I'm talking about, don't you? Now let's go ahead and replace this with the charm bangle really quick, because I really don't need to fight like anything in this area. All of this is just a waste of my time. Actually, Nerozaz, that depends on how... Damn it, Brickwin. That depends on if I could make the entire FF series into each show. Like if I could do a show about FF4, if I could do a show about FF5. Because I think you could do a television show about most of the FF games. The really good ones, you know? 7, 9. and do some good stuff with it. But if I was limited to only picking one, I would call the FF6 show the Final Fantasy. And given the way this show would go and the rather depressing, dark themes of it, yeah. He is, isn't he, Hellrooney? Personally, and I know this is me just pulling this out of my ass, but personally, I love the idea that Palador felt guilty. Remember, guilt and sacrifice are one of the major themes of this game. I'd say like the fifth or so themes. There's a lot of themes in FF6. Um, and so I feel like Palador, like many of the Espers, feels guilty about how the world has become, about how ruined and wrecked everything. So remember, all the surviving Espers are now out and about. There is no Esper realm anymore. There is no separate dimension. It's just the world. And so I feel like Palador felt guilty and wanted to do something, anything to help. And I don't think Palador realized how much of a catalyst he ended up being. Because if you really think about it, Palador is the reason most of FF6's World of Ruin happens. If he hadn't given Celis that reason to live, she would not have gone forth, found Sabin, found Terra, found Edgar, encountered Setzer, turned Setzer around, gotten the airship, etc., etc., etc. And I gotta be blunt, without the airship, there is no victory against Kefka. That is a huge game changer. It is, in fact, the biggest game changer in the World of Ruin. By the way, nice touch. Other than that one kid, and I think that's it, everyone moves slower here. Remember when we were here back in the World of Balance? Everyone ran around very quickly? Now everyone's just kind of casually meandering. There's a bunch of subtle touches in the World of Ruin to emphasize how this world has become. Gerard. God, Edgar is a brilliant tactician and genius and a lot of other things. He's awesome, intelligent, attractive. He does not know how to lie, does he? What's your name? Gerard. King Gerard. No, just plain Gerard, not King Gerard. One thing that has always bugged me, and I would try to fix this in the proper remake. Hey, Cheddarbox. Glad you liked it. Is base. Okay, I mentioned before that FF6 does not actually. They didn't have the code designed yet to check who's in your party and change what people say based on that. That was first introduced to the series in FF7, where it'll say, oh, you have Yuffie and Vincent, so here's their lines pertinent to the scene. So in several cases, some of the emotional impact of a scene is destroyed because the game doesn't know you have party member A or B in the party. For example, and to make it clear, the fact that I had Realm back on the floating continent, I would add some lines of dialogue, either for Shadow or Realm, probably Shadow, to indicate that Realm was there. This is another example. This always bugged the snot out of me when I was younger, because normally you get Sabin before this, right? I mean, I imagine some of you in the chat are like, "Wait, why didn't you get Sabin?" Because Sabin's actually optional. Did you know that? You don't have to do Sabin's thing. You don't have to do Terra's thing. So if you have Sabin in the party, remember how close and how much of an emotional bond Sabin and Edgar have, and all of a sudden the two of them just kind of don't interact at all. They're just like, nope, it's Celis. It's all about Celis, and that always bothered me. So again, I would like it if they went back and fixed it so that Sabin had some significant character moments here with his brother who is ignoring him and pretending he doesn't know him. That kind of a thing, right? So, a couple other things to continue the theme of despair. Obviously, the world is ruined. People are barely functional anymore. Thieves are out and about. There's random monsters that have never been seen before that are just roaming the world. The sea is sickly. There's this deathly wind and a death knell playing whenever you're on the overworld music. There are lots and lots and lots of little details in the NPCs you talk to, in the graphics, and in the sound design and music that all get across the same idea. The world of ruin. And I know we've all called this the world of ruin for 20 years or however long this game's been out, but it deserves to be reemphasized how appropriate that title is Not the world that is destroyed, not the world that is dead, not the world of the dead or the damned, the world of ruin, an almost pure expression of atrophy, of entropy, right? Yes, Mandarton, there are only 3 party members that are required in the world of Ruin. Celis, Edgar, and Setzer. You cannot avoid those 3 party members. Everyone else is optional, and I mean everyone else. Now, as an aside, remember that TV show we keep talking about? You guys have really made me think about this, so it's just on my mind now. Yeah, exactly, Kay. In FF7, you have the meteor hovering overhead that you can't get away from. In FF6, the meteor's already hit. We're just bleeding out now. This is a wonderfully delightful game, isn't it? Anyways, yeah, give me a chocobo. If I was doing a television show for this, I would probably go out of my way to actually make it unclear if Gerard was Edgar. I would have some obvious similarities, and it would probably be the same actor playing him. But at the same time, I would have him be a little better disguised, and I don't think I'd call him Gerard. I'd call him something like a completely different name, and I would basically tell the actor to portray him as if he is a different character. So in other words, even though the audience would probably tell that that's Edgar, they might think it's not Edgar mentally, if you know what I mean. I mean, we have seen what traumatic events can do in this game twice, once with Terra and once with Rachel. And so I would want the audience to be second-guessing if Edgar, our Edgar, is gone, even if Edgar the body continues on, right? That's how I would have done the Gerard thing. Now, I know I've said this a dozen times. How many of you out there made the same mistake I did when it's like, oh, it's pretty dangerous. I'll go in first and clear out the monsters. You wait here. I put this controller down for several minutes. First time I played this, just put the SNES controller on the ground, and I just sat here waiting. You know, pretty sure I went and got a sandwich. I was at my dad's house at the time. I went and got a sandwich. Nom, nom, nom. Came back, still waiting. Yeah, so he never comes back. I'll just spoil that for you. He never comes back. I need to check a few things, because this is actually a pretty dangerous section for her, because she's solo, and I'm basically going to be running from every fight here. We are not at the point where I really want to start leveling or fighting enemies, especially solo. So, yeah. Also, woo, Sonic. Yes, I am still hyped for Fallout 4. We can get the treasures in here finally, but I'm going to wait till we have a full party to come back and do that. So, I think a little bit, yeah, Chatter. What's up? I'm debating adding another plus to this game for the atmosphere of the World of Ruin prior to the Falcon. Anyone else thinking about that? Oh, that would be terrible, Psychotic. Because, as I said, everything about the NPCs, to the graphics, to the sound design... You know what? Yeah, this is my review. I have given reasoning behind everything I have done so far. This is definitely another plus to music and sound, which is already off the page, and graphics, which is about to... Okay, so let's go ahead and correlate these. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is a 10 now. We're going to go ahead and do this finally. Is this 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. There we go. And we'll go ahead and do that for the other one too. I like the visual aesthetic here. But yeah, let's go ahead. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I figured there were 23 of those there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And looks like that's it for the gameplay. Yeah, there we go. All right. But yeah, as Kay says, and this is something I wanted to talk about, Remember, Kefka does not destroy the world. I know that sounds weird, but think about it for a moment. That is exactly what he has the power to do right now. He has the power to destroy the world massively or personally. He could literally go around with the light of judgment and just wreck the world bit by bit, but he doesn't, does he? Now, that has to do with Kefka's own character development and things I've actually talked about many, many times. It basically boils down to summarize really quick, since I'm talking about it now, the idea that Kefka has stopped caring. He doesn't even care about destroying the world at this point. He is just not interested in anything at all. However, this world is exactly what has happened as a result of Kefka being the nexus point of the fantastical. Remember, that's what I said. I didn't just say magic. It is the entire concept of a fantasy existence. And so everything about this world is now warped and twisted because of the fact that Kefka is, for all intents and purposes, the heart, to use a Kingdom Hearts term, of the world. And so the whole world is rotting, and the whole world is despairing, and some people are just randomly violent, and there's a degree of chaos everywhere, and there's just this wreck. Again, world of ruin. And all these horrible monsters have been unleashed, but even they aren't doing the kind of massive damage that they could. Because why bother? Nothing matters. Even destroying the world doesn't matter. Yeah, pretty much exactly right, Bragwin. Kefka was shown what he believed to be the true nature of reality, thanks to what Gestalt and everything else did to him. So he showed the rest of the world that too. Everything is now this way. It is probably tremendously frustrating to Kefka that people actually try to prevent that, to change that, to fight against this inevitable. Because in Kefka's mind, it is an absolute. As has been mentioned before, Terra and Celes both represent other aspects of Kefka's personality. And if Kefka had had someone like Locke, or someone like Edgar, or someone like Sabin, or God, anybody else really, if Kefka had had someone who actually gave a damn about Kefka, who actually gave a damn about the person rather than the tool, it is actually very possible Kefka might have made the recovery that Celes and Terra both did. But he didn't. He had Gestalt. And God, think about the tragic irony of that. That Kefka, someone who more than anyone else in this card game needed someone to be there for him, needed a human connection that could keep him functional and sane and a decent human being, and all he had was frickin' Gestalt. God, that's just horrible. Some people ask why I call Kefka a sympathetic villain. I think I've already given plenty of reasons for that, but everything I just said is another tick onto that line of thought. Also, Prog, I've seen that that poster. It's a really awesome one. Thank you for sharing. So this line is a bad translation. It was awful. What he's actually trying to be doing here is gasping for air. This is probably why Woolsey had trouble translating this, because Japanese script allows for dialogue that isn't actually words, basically. It's just a, sort of an onomatopoeia kind of a thing. So, yeah, these people are basically gasping for air. The idea here is that Figaro Castle got stuck recently, that they haven't been down here the whole year. They've been down here for like a few days, and Edgar found out about it a few days ago and then has been trying to get in to fix the situation ever since. Now I'm going to go scroll up to see what Chatter said up here. This is my favorite. Is there a term for the visual aesthetic of mechanical decay? I don't think there is off the top of my head, no. Not specifically a mechanical sort of rotten decay. I know what you're talking about. I get the aesthetic you're talking about, but if there's a specific term for that concept, I don't know it off the top of my head. Okay, we should be good at this boss fight. I'm going to set up a save state just in case. Not going to fight anything because they're not worth my time, and I don't have Sabin with me. That's the other thing. You're technically supposed to have Sabin with you, but obviously I do not. So this boss fight might be a little trickier, and I kind of forgot to pick up some weapons in the World of Balance that make this boss fight a lot easier. Oh, he's definitely quietly accepting it, Nerozaz. I have no doubt about that at all. The music, Dancing Mad, tells me that, even if the fact that he says nothing doesn't. This is a man who has been talking and laughing and cackling for his entire existence, but when he dies, he has nothing to say. I absolutely think that was done on purpose. They put a lot of thought and effort into the final battle of this game. It's a shame it's such an easy fight, relatively speaking, but you know, knock on wood. But yeah. Come on, there we go. We'll leave the brake plate on, that might be useful. Oh, you son of a... Because that's a different perspective on Kefka, Nerozaz. Remember, that's a Kefka who hasn't actually gone through the entirety of his character arc yet. That's a Kefka before he actually gained the statues, before he learned about the truth of Gestalt and blah 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 blah. Remember, in Dissidia, most of the characters were pulled in the middle of their character arcs, or in some cases in the beginning of their character arcs. So they don't have all of that development that they have by the end of the game. It's one of the reasons why so many of the character arcs in Dissidia mirror their character arcs in the actual games, because they're effectively doing it for the first time. Again, if you understand that. And then their memory gets wiped and they go back to do it for the first time, technically, again. I would still, again, if I was doing the mind screw thing with the fake Edgar, yes I did, Night Dawn. I would definitely have that be prevalent here. Okay. At least I thought I did. I don't remember, actually, now that I'm saying, did I? Shoot, now you're making me doubt myself. By the way, Edgar's gonna carry this fight. I know. What a shock, right? Actually, I guess he's not, because I didn't get to put a running shoes on him. Yeah, they can't seize me, so that's nice. Is it this one? One of these is actually weak to break, and I don't remember which is which. One of these is weak to break, one of these is weak to fire. One of them is absorbs fire. I don't remember if I gave a plus to him, and I don't want to give too many pluses. I am trying to be as impartial and literal as I can here. Let's see what water damage does. Leviathan's got nothing on Bismarck. Oh my god. Okay, that's not cool. Ow. Kafka or Kefka, chatter, because those are two extremely different things. Despite what some people might think. I'm gonna take a guess here. Okay, I was correct. So yeah, this fight can suck if you're not prepared for it. Kafka, yes. To my knowledge, Kafka was inspired by, however you pronounce that name. Pagliacliapi. I don't know. Unless I'm completely misunderstanding, which is possible. I'd have to look it up. I'm just gonna, you know what, I'm gonna default to I don't know, because I don't. Hey, Scorpion. He said it. Oh, god damn it. That just made me waste my mana. Or not. That's actually not going to be a waste of my mana. Oh, Kefka? Kefka was absolutely not. No. Kefka has his own things. And I'm dead. Okay. So, hang on. Let's go ahead and give you... Debate. Yes, we'll do that. We're going to be a little risky with our strat here. Pagliacci? Can't do that. It's terrible. Anyways, see, I'm kind of low level, and I'm down a person. I'm effectively doing speedrun strats, except I forgot to get the rods, which basically destroy this boss in like 3 rounds. So I'm doing a speedrun strat without the strat, so it's just screw me. Okay, let's focus on this guy first. Nah, okay. Damn it, Kay. You know the rule. Oh, screw you. Why did that... Oh, okay, never mind, I get it. I don't think they're very similar, no, Chatter. A lot of people have drawn parallels between Kefka and many other characters. It is my opinion that Kefka is a unique brand of his particular variety of psychosis, and as I've said before, a lot of it has to do with the way he was presented in the English translation, thanks to Woolsey taking him and running with him, basically. Damn it. Can I vanish these? 'Cause that'd be great. Damn it. Yeah, I figured. Okay, whatever. You know what? Hang on. I'm just gonna look up which is which. I keep second guessing myself. Final Fantasy 6 Tentacle. There we go. Tentacle boss. Which one is which? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so upper left and lower right are vulnerable to petrify. So those are the two I can break. Lower left is vulnerable to death, and that's who I usually use that one on. And the upper right is vulnerable to poison. I used to have all this stuff memorized, but I haven't actually sped run a full run of FF6 in literally a year here. That is true, Kay. So yeah, let's go ahead and get some break on here. Absolutely. I definitely think that the humor aspect of the FF series needs to be in the more modern ones. I'm a little surprised they haven't been doing more of that. I'm really hoping that will be present. It said lower right, right? I'm hoping that will be more present in the remake of FF7. Gosh darn it. Come on. That's a good question, Night Dawn. But we already know the answer to that. Because they're awesome. I'm not quite kidding. The actual reasoning is because each of them are already basically superhuman individuals who are more than capable of bypassing, you know, normal human limitations. Remember, these are people who have already been imbued by Magicite, so they are kind of literally superhuman. So, that's the answer. That's true, bro, doesn't it? All right, screw it. Let's remove our number of targets here at least. I'm not sure on that, Scorpion. The argument of voice acting to text is a really big argument because it depends on many, many, many different factors. I can't believe I just did that. I cannot believe I just did that. Oh, whatever. At least I healed one that hasn't been damaged. So, for example, let's say you have good voice actors. Bamf. There you go. Automatically, I'd say voice acting tends to be superior to text with good voice actors. With bad voice actors, the dialogue will actually be worse than it otherwise would be. And by bad, I don't just mean someone who, you know, doesn't know what they're doing or is, you know, terrible. A tepid or disinteresting voice actor will ruin a role just as surely as you know, bad writing will, for example. If you don't have the proper emotion or intent, or indeed if you're going over the top with your presentation and being just a little bit too campy, that can also ruin a game. Okay? Now, there's a niggle here. There is one advantage that text has over voice acting. That text has text is like a book. You decide the voice of that character. You can input whatever voice you perceive as that character into those lines, right? And I know I'm not the only person out there who can literally hear, quote unquote, in your head, you know, the voice of Terra or the voice of Cloud or, you know, whatever. The voice of these characters that otherwise did not have voices to them. Just all you had was the picture and the text on the screen and, you know, the character and all that fun stuff. So, you know, yeah, shrug. But as Kay points out, there's a third factor in here. The voice director. For those of you not aware of what I mean by this, a good voice actor can still sound terrible with a bad voice director or bad lines, or both. If the sound director is not doing a good job, he's not going to pull a good performance out of it, and all we're going to have is this horrible, horrible situation where everyone's like, you know what I mean? Actually, you're equipped with this, aren't you? Yes, you are. Why don't we just do this? So that's the other problem. You could have yeah, exactly, Prog, like a movie thing. No, I am not, Cheddar. So if you have good lines and good and a good actor, but you have a bad voice director, it can still turn out bad. Now, all of this being said, if FF6 was being redone and they had a good director and good actors, I'm not worried about the dialogue. I'm not worried about that aspect of things. So then, yeah, at that point, I would be okay with there being voice acting. But as you can see, there's several ifs there involved into whether or not it's actually a good thing. And yeah, Peter Dinklage is a pretty good example of a bad voice director. The voice director in Dissidia 1 was terrible. And I can give you a direct example about this, by the way. Kuja. Listen to Kuja's lines in Dissidia 1. They're terrible. And the whole time you're just sitting there thinking, God, this actor has no idea what he's doing. And then you play Dissidia 2, Dissidia 2 Decim, where they had a different voice director. And he suddenly knew what he was doing. Suddenly Kuja sounds exactly correct. Exactly how I would picture Kuja's voice sounding. And it's just like, whoa, that's actually Kuja all of a sudden, you know? The only difference was they got a better voice director. Same actor, same writer, different director. For those of you not aware, the voice director who was involved with Kuja specifically, the guy who played Kuja, he didn't tell the actor who Kuja was as a character. He basically gave him no direction on the character. And the actor who played Kuja has gone on record as saying that when he was doing Dissidia's lines, he had no idea what character he was playing. Because he wasn't told anything. Nobody told him anything. Nobody directed him anything. And yeah, another good example is Steve Burton. For those of you not aware, Steve Burton is the English voice actor for Cloud. He has always been the English voice actor for Cloud. If I'm not mistaken, there's literally nothing he has not done where Cloud has had a voice where it's not him. It's always been him. And he's done a good job of it forever. I personally rather like his portrayal of Cloud. I think it is the definitive portrayal of Cloud in English. And so the fact, if you listen to Cloud's lines in Dissidia 1, they're terrible. It's bland, boring, disinteresting. He overemphasizes certain parts. blah, blah, blah. Now, again, all of this is fixed in Dissidia Duodecim, where they actually got a decent voice director, but yeah. So yeah, I love Dissidia. Don't mistake me, I really do, but they really dropped the ball on the voice acting of Dissidia 1. Now, Dissidia 2, they completely nailed that. In fact, all I gotta say about Dissidia 2 is the guy who played Laguna is awesome. Perhaps I do have a reason to fight, after all. God, I'm sorry, I shouldn't joke about that. Anyways, so in response to Chatter's question, no. The only reason I would like that is if they did it properly, and it is possible to do that properly. Basically, from a development perspective, if they chop something up into episodes, it can make things easier on both the time and money budget. For example, one of the biggest problems all gamer developments have had since forever is a deadline. You know, you do need to hit a deadline. That's the time budget. You know, you run out of time budget, you're screwed. So being able to make a release, being able to release basically a chunk of the game early allows you to hit that deadline without having to rush to hit that deadline, because you only needed to release part of the game to hit the deadline, and then episode 2 will come out later. Now, that is possible to happen. There are companies out there that do that. Telltale Games is one, and there are several ways to do that kind of a thing. However, there's also a bad way to do that. I don't want to name names here. Blizzard. However, you come out with a game and then you release the second game later, a couple of years later, and then you charge for it, it becomes a money grab situation. I will also take a moment to defend Blizzard and say that at least each game is a full game, and that hang on, I'm being offered Chipotle. That each game is at least a full game and a standalone game, and they charge less for each subsequent. However, it's still a bad thing. You see where I'm getting this? I mean, I am defending Blizzard, but I am also blasting them, because I don't agree with their choice, even though I can accept it, because there are some positives about it. Sorry, guys, I am not a Blizzard hate or fanboy. They do some things right, and they do some things wrong. Telltale's is probably the best example of how to do that kind of a thing. Remember, each new episode of Telltale's, there's no charge. You bought the game. The new episode comes out, you get it. It's free. You're done. Hang on, I need to text my order really quick to Chipotle. What's that stupid stuff? What's the new thing they have at Chipotle? It's like chorizo. That was it, chorizo. Chorizo burrito, brown rice. I'll be pausing for lunch soon, by the way. No beans. Hang on, Gary. Let us... Damn it, Gary. Ah! God damn it. Hang on, I'm having phone issues here. Guys, I'm being offered Fuddruckers now. Do you think I should go? That's a stupid question. I'm going to go and go. We're going to go ahead and pause for lunch then. This is a good time to do this. This would probably be the end of episode, I'd say 3 here in Season 4. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and hit Fuddruckers apparently. I want to get a little bit further in here before I change and get ready to go. Hey, Titans. Oh god, Titans is here. I gotta run! Oh, I'm still poisoned. Now, funny thing, some people think this is a hope spot, and it kind of is. You know, you've gotten all the stuff here. You've saved. Um, which one, Kay? Also, screw you, Bragman. Not literally, just, I mean, maybe literally, but anyways, point being, um, that this would be the end of like episode 3 or whatever. You know, episode 1 is her uh, talking to Palador, getting off the thing, and encountering Sabin, possibly all of Sabin's thing. The next episode would be Terra's tidbit. Obviously, we skipped both of these. Um, and then she makes the trip north to Nikia, encounters, you know, fake Edgar. And, yes, this is what I want to do. And then we go into this next section. Now, I've talked about this before, so this is going to be repeating myself. Sorry, I've had some new things to talk about during this review, and some of it has just been repetition. However, I think this is going to be another story plus here, because Celis is someone who knows exactly what it feels like to hit rock bottom. And she knows what it feels like to rebound from that. She knows what it's like to have been given a reason to try, a reason to keep going, right? There we go. I mention this because Celis is uniquely positioned to be the person to convince Setzer. Oh, jeez, really? To be the person to convince Setzer to actually make the same journey. Remember, Setzer finally started to let the mask down just a little bit when he encountered the party, when he had a reason to express his own caring again, right? Remember that? I talked all about that forever ago. Now he has lost all of that. He's lost his wings, so he's lost the sky, which, I gotta be honest, I can't even imagine what it would be like to have the sky, to have the ability to fly, either in a ship or with wings, and then to lose that. That's actually a somewhat common theme in quite a few things of fiction, going all the way back to the Greek era, actually. But to name a modern example, in Warlords of Draenor, that's one of the biggest character arcs of the era Koa, and their entire, excuse me, not character arcs, plot arcs of the era Koa, is they have lost the ability to fly, right? And how horrible that is. Actually, why don't we give... So, he's lost the sky, he's lost his friends, he has lost every purpose that he had prior to now. He's got nothing left. So, I like the idea that Setzer ended up here in Kochlingen because this is near where the Tomb of Daryl is. And then he just kind of hangs out. No, I'm not referring to Icarus, actually. Icarus was about, well, stupidity, really, but... I'm actually more referring to some of Socrates' things. Or not Socrates, am I saying the wrong thing? Is it Plato? I think it's Plato, excuse me, Plato's things. Anyways, point I'm getting back to here is that Setzer is... I like the idea that Setzer is literally just sitting here drinking his days away. There's no point in anything. I mean, he's just hanging out here. Daryl's tomb is right over there. And the funny thing is, Setzer could have gone to that tomb at any point in time to try and get that airship back. He just didn't care. He had no reason to care at all. Why bother? You know? Why bother with any of it? Honestly. Yeah. Soul Saber is a very useful thing for some single character challenges, by the way. Where is it? There it is. God, I'm just blind apparently. And I was gonna say that's another thing. Okay, he could have just been like, nope, yeah. She's learned everything, right? Yeah, she kind of has. Why don't you go and learn that for right now? Here's actually the only Narsh soldier left in the world. He gives us the little hint that Narsh is filled with monsters. That'll be terrible. This is one of, I think, 2 points in the game where we get a little bit of a flashback of how things were. Birds flying, peaceful, wonderfulness. And then reality. Note the girl's no longer playing there either, by the way. Now, for some reason, there's an unequipped guy here. Shrug. So we get hints about Sion. We get hints about the Colosseum. There's the hint of how you get Shadow, even though Shadow technically isn't there yet, but whatever. Now this is really important. We have planted seeds, but nothing's growing. These seeds sprout within minutes of Kefka being destroyed. Again, this is just going back to that point I made earlier about how Kefka has basically become the core of the world being a reflection of Kefka himself. I love the idea that in a year nothing has been growing. Some of the plants and animals might still be there, clinging to life in a broken, sheltered manner, but nothing new has sprouted in a year. Do you know what that would do to an ecosystem? It's one of the reasons why I like the ending of FF6, because things start to grow again. And again, we don't fix the world in FF6. We allow it to be fixed. We don't actually get to that point. We remove the problem, you know? We remove the thorn, and now the body can start to heal itself, basically. Also, this is a cute little steam. Yeah, again, food supplies are probably very low, I would imagine. There we go. That's kind of true, Psychotic. Now, what Bragwin says is another one of those interesting things to just kind of think about for a while. What if it had been Celis instead of Kefka? What if it had been Terra instead of Kefka? Again, all three of them basically went through the same general problem, for lack of a better term. Kefka just happened to draw the short end of the stick, or the straw, rather. So I like this. I'm sorry, just this guy says the world's already in the heap, and this one just says hope. And the idea here is that he's saying this in kind of a wistful, despairing tone. Again, you don't really get that in English, but he's just been hope, weak, barely consonant. So then we talk to Setzer. Actually, several people do Neurozaz. They do mention that people are starving out and animals are dying out, and etc., etc. So they do mention a food problem a couple of times, just not that prolifically. So this is where, it's mentioned again that Setzer is just, he's gone, he's given up. And Celis, again, uniquely suited. This is one of those wonderful things in writing. This is good writing, and for this good writing, this gets a plus. For a scene like this, you need to have a situation where character A meets character B. Why? Because character A is uniquely suited to interact with character B in the way they need to. Now, a lot of stories, they'll come up with some contrivance to meet character A, meet character B. It happens because the plot demands it. What instead happens here is Celis, for all intents and purposes, really does become the new main character. At least for this section of the game. She becomes the new core, the new center point, the new nexus, the new glue that ends up gathering together the party and getting them back on their feet. And that works beautifully because she is the one, because they made her go through all that horrible, terrible stuff, both on the floating continent and then in the coma and then in the recovery from the coma. So again, she is someone who actually knows what it's like to hit rock bottom and have refused to give up. Now, it has been argued as to whether or not Celis feels no, not kitty cuddles. It is debatable as to whether or not Celis feels hope or if she feels defiance. I've said it before, and I've said it again. Those two are very different things. Hope is things will get better. Defiance is I will not let things get worse. It's debatable which one she's feeling at this point in time. If you ask my opinion, I'd say she's feeling defiance up until the great moment, which we're pretty close to. But that's just my opinion, and as ever, it's interpretive. And so Celis is the one who brings Setzer out of it, and then we hear one of the best songs in the game. I'd give it another music tidbit, but I'm not going to. By the way, if you're not paying attention, there's another subtlety here. Celis is the first person to crack Setzer's mask. Remember that? All the way back on the blackjack? She out-hustled him in order to change his perspective and again, cracked the mask, allowed Setzer to actually be himself for just a second and start to actually showcase his character underneath that veneer of the, irreverent party guy who is a rich man. It is then Celis who gets to him again, this time around. And I just love the symmetry of that. The fact that both times Setzer is A, recruited to the party, gameplay-wise, and B, recruited into the cause, lore-wise. It is Celis who manages it. That appeals to me, and that is good writing. That's why I got the extra plus there. That's another reason I got the extra plus here. So now that he has a reason, well, he knows where the tomb is. It's right there. By the way, there's a quiet little tidbit in the tomb. I'll talk about that in just a second. But first I want to showcase, remember I talked to these two guys? They both say something different now. I overheard your conversation. I too still have faith in this world and hope. We must never give up hope. And again, this is supposed to be said in a different tone than the previous thing. Instead of, the quiet, weakling. It's more like hope. Yay. By the way, I've decided not to go to Fuddruckers, guys, in case you're wondering. I'm going to stick it out with you guys. The stream greater than food. Now we're going to go ahead and start fighting things again, because we have Edgar. I don't need food, Bregman. Don't be silly. It's okay. They have offered to bring back Chipotle, so they're going to go to Fuddruckers, which is way over there. It's a long trip. That's part of why I didn't want to do it. So they're going way over to Fuddruckers. They're going to eat, then they're going to be on the way back, and then they can bring Chipotle on the way, and I'll be very grateful for it. So yeah, I'll get food in like a year, or an hour. Yeah, my time's wrong. Okay, so this dungeon can be pretty rough. It also contains a pretty difficult optional boss and a tricky main boss. So, theoretical question, guys, because this is another of those purely interpretive, purely speculative, we don't know things, okay? Was there a romantic element to Daryl and Setzer's relationship? I think I am pro, because I think it's going to be finally a good way to talk about optionals. I haven't actually talked about optionals this whole time. I mentioned I would way back in, like, Narsh the first time. No, beef stew! And so I'm going to be talking about optionals here. I need to heal. I need to set up a couple things, too. Are you... Yeah, you have nothing equipped. Let's get you set up in full mage mode. So... Actually, no. We'll use you as this for right now, much as I hate to do that. Where's the... There it is. Now, by the way, to my knowledge, feel free to correct me on this, we do not have anything to go off of if they were romantic or not. I think that's actually kind of funny when you think about it, because it's one of those situations where, you know, some people automatically assume, well, of course they were together, and then some people are like, because it's so easy for a person to interpret it in your own particular idiom, that... You know, you automatically assume. I do this myself. You know, it's like, oh, there's this, and then I'm later informed. Well, no, that's your interpretation. It's not automatic. And I think about it, it's like, you're right. I just automatically assumed that was true. But yeah, whether or not there was an actual romantic tint is debatable. Now, it's funny, Kay, you and I are agreeing a lot on FF6. It's really weird. You and I normally disagree on like everything. Kay and I actually have the same general thoughts with regards to those two characters. In other words, I believe that there was definitely a spark. There was definitely a the potential of genuine romance. I don't mean like lust. I don't mean sex. I don't mean a fling. I mean there was actually potential for a real connection between the two of these people. But because of both of their natures, because of what they did, because of all that they went through, because of the, their free spiritedness and all that fun stuff, they never actually uh, took that final step. They never got to the point where, to put it into more uh, romanticized terms, they never got married. They never connected. Instead, they just kind of danced around it, and then Daryl had happened to her whatever happened to her. We don't know. That's another one. We still don't know to this day. This is a good time as any to talk about that, by the way. What do you think happened to Daryl? I have my own theory. I also have heard a second theory and a third theory. I will be sharing all of these with you. But what do you personally think happened to Daryl? Hey, Kamek. What's up, man? I hate Marlboros in most of the FFs, if I'm honest. No, okay, that didn't work. Here's a question for you guys. In regard to the Daryl thing, how many of you are aware of Niki Lauda? How many of you does that name mean anything to you? Oops, I'm going the wrong way. I think it's pretty clear Daryl is not Go-Go, but that is one of the theories, that Daryl is in fact Go-Go. That she crashed in a distant land and was eaten by by the Zone Eater. Kamek is correct. Niki Lauda is an F1 driver. Now, for those of you not aware, he had a horrifying accident. This isn't fiction or anything, by the way. He had a really bad accident where he had to eat flames, kind of literally, and nobody could get him out of a burning car for, I think it was like a minute. Huge period of time, right? The significance of this, he actually bowed out of a given race at the end of that season because, to put it bluntly, in his own words, good movie, by the way. Yeah, Rush is a great movie. I have seen it. But to put it in his own words, he had something to lose now. Niki Lauda was always the professional, always the strict, efficient, mechanical-minded kind of a guy. When he got together with the woman, I forget her name, but when he got together with the woman who he ended up being with for the remainder of his life, I shouldn't actually say that. I don't know if they're still together. Niki Lauda's still alive to this day. But when he got together with her, he suddenly had something to lose for the first time. I mention this because if Daryl and Setzer had a romantic connection to them, and if they had actually decided to take that step to become connected, it is very possible Daryl would not have had the accident happen. She might have had a reason not to push herself that little extra bit. She might have thought about Setzer and pulled herself back a step. Oh, he did separate from Marlene. That's a shame. I've seen a few pictures of those two back in the day. I didn't know they separated. That's a pity. Anyways, Niki Lauda is actually one of my favorite F1 drivers, by the way. It's one of the reasons I know him pretty much off the top of my head. As soon as they announced they're going to do Rush, I was like, yes. I'm not a huge James Hunt fan, but Niki Lauda, yes. I'm into it. I was also a Senna fan, although I think the entire world was a Senna fan, so that's not saying anything. And Kimi Räikkönen is another one I really like. But I'm getting off topic. So anyways, you see this tomb? I mentioned I said something else to talk about. This tomb's huge, isn't it? This tomb's huge. It's well designed. Even after however many years, we don't know. Even after how many years, this place is still well built, well maintained. It hasn't completely fallen apart. Whoever put this place together knew what they were doing, right? Remember that Setzer was really, really well off financially. arguably still is. The only reason I'm bringing it up is it's just another emphasis of just what Daryl meant to him. I can imagine Setzer basically pushing himself into the bread, really shoving himself down financially to build this tomb and build it well and build it right with all the decor and whatnot to make this place as fanciful as possible, specifically in honor of his fallen friend and the Falcon. Because the Falcon was all he had left of her, remember? They never found her. And that's another interesting thing. They never found a body for Daryl. That's actually clear even in the original translation. By the way, for those of you who have never understood this reference, hang on. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and just give you the reference, just so I can show it off. I don't think the monsters were filled in here initially. I personally think that the... Yes, Nero says he specifically refers to it as her tomb that he set up specifically for the Falcon. Anyways, I think the world is square. I think the tomb, the monsters just kind of roamed in over time, especially after the fact. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me that the monsters migrating in only happened after the World of Ruin incident. Maybe there was a crack that happened to allow the monsters in. Maybe there, because of the world shifting and whatnot. Maybe I'm out of mana. Crap. Maybe the more innately magical nature of the world after the ruin just caused them to manifest in this place of sorrow and grief and death. That's the kind of thing that happens. We don't know, but all of those are theories that I postulate. So, like I said, I wanted to talk about Daryl. Now, I've asked a few of you what you thought. I've got a couple people answering. Here's the 3 theories I've heard. I'm going to give the one I believe in most last. Okay, you ready for this? First and most obvious theory. She's dead. She had an airship crash, and she was not someone who is a, superpowered, magicite-imbued hero of the world. She was just a woman, a person, who, do I have to do it totally reverse? There we go. If anybody has ever wondered where this quote comes from, this is it right here. And the obvious implication back when Squaresoft was freaking amazing, and they had a lot of fans. This was the kind of the quote that you would see mentioned many, many different times on forums or message boards or web pages or whatever. The world, if you can't figure that out, it's the world is square. Get it? And yeah, it also tells you where to get the X-Big. I've actually already gotten the X-Big. So, yeah. Do you have... Yeah, you have the Bismarck equipped. You're the one who's going to get the X-Big. Yeah, they also had that in their commercials, too. The world is square. It was a nice little thing. So, Daryl. I don't know if Daryl is a woman. I'm assuming based on her sprite. She could be transgender. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm going to refer to her as a she, because I don't know what else to refer to as. Doesn't frickin' matter, okay? So Daryl, she either A, first and most obvious theory, she's dead. Second theory, she's Go-Go. I really don't agree with that theory, and that theory mostly happened for people who didn't actually play Final Fantasy V, and that's obvious. See you around, chatter. Have fun with Banjo Tooie. But yeah, it's pretty obvious that Go-Go is actually intended to be Go-Go, and given the fact that we have found out now in the more modern era that that Go-Go was actually supposed to be the Go-Go from FF5, and there's gonna be more to him, and more to a couple of other things too. It is very likely that there was never any intention for Daryl to be Go-Go. However, there have been plenty of people who have given their evidence and reasons for Go-Go being Daryl, including the fact that Go-Go can equip things that only women can equip. That's it. This is legit. He can equip like the Minerva Bustier, for example, and things like that. Um, so, and of course, Gogo ends up in this far distant land, eaten by Zone Seek. You know, comes up with this whole new identity, etc., etc. Shrug. Oh, also, some people mention the fact that Gogo can mimic women, you know, etc., etc. It doesn't matter. There it is. Well, no, Gogo, it actually specifically goes out of its way to not mention what Gogo's gender is. Basically in the same exact way of Kuena. It's literally copy-paste. Everything about how he, she, or him, her in Kuena, it's intended to be the same thing with Gogo. It's just we don't see that many moments of Gogo being mentioned in lore on characters. So there's only like 2 scenes ever where they're like, hey, Gogo, we don't know if it's a guy or a girl or whatever. And that is true, Kay. Like I said, I do not buy into that theory personally, I never have. There is a third theory. There's probably like 20 theories, but there's a third that I know of. And again, feel free to share if you have another theory. I think Daryl is Realm's mother. I think Daryl crashed in Thamasa, or near Thamasa, and ended up either drifting there or floating down the river there, and was saved by someone there, and ended up residing in the town, being brought in, injured woman, etc., etc. Again, distant land, as was mentioned, and over time encountered, God, I suddenly can't think of his name, Shadow's first name, and then, you know, the 2 of them grew close over however many years they spent in Thamasa, finally ended up falling in love, finally had a child, and then Shadow bails, and then Lord knows what happens to Daryl, but as we have established, Realm's mother is dead. Clyde, thank you. So, yeah. So technically, I do think Daryl is dead. It's just I don't think she died in the crash. That's my personal favorite pet theory on the matter. And again, not a lot of evidence to go in the direction of it, but the biggest thing for me is the distant land thing and the fact that it seems like the kind of thing she would do after that kind of traumatic incident. It's the kind of thing that would actually have that sort of situation happening. Gogo's a character, Krensler. I don't know how to answer your question. He's a character in this game. He's a mimic. He's the original mime. Now, as Mandarton points out, there is a flaw in that. A significant flaw, actually. That would imply Daryl was a descendant of the Magitek Knights. Because how else would Realm have innate magical power, right? I talked about Realm being a hybrid. If I'm being honest, I think there's 2 ways that could work out. One, she is in fact a Magitek Knight because she's actually from Thamasa. And with her knowledge and explorative desire and whatnot, she actually built the first airship, Falcon, and then took that off and encountered Setzer, and he was already working on his second, you know, what he thought was the first airship was actually the second airship, and then the 2 of them, that's how the 2 of them met, and blah, 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 blah. Second possibility, simply being and living in Thamasa for a significant amount of time might actually allow you to become magically imbued. And that could have happened, you know, because we see that actually does happen. The monsters and creatures around there slowly become more and more magical due to exposure, right? That's why there is magic on Crescent Island. And so it is possible that either Daryl or Realm or both just kind of slowly started absorbing a little bit of that latent magic, which would also kind of explain partially why Realm cannot actually cast spells without Magicite. Whereas Strago can, even if his are lores, aka blue magic. All of this is purely speculative. The real answer is we have no idea what the hell happened to Daryl, and we probably never will. Now, I said I'd talk about optionals. This is an optional. An optional is exactly what it sounds like. It is a boss, specifically a difficult encounter, if you want to get down to a more precise definition, that is completely optional and usually gives some kind of benefit for fighting it. In this case, we will get a piece of treasure for fighting it. Okay. Yep, fire was the good one. I was right. obviously this guy is based off of Welk from all the way back in the day, except he has this nice little thing eating the treasure chest. This guy's actually basically supposed to be a mimic. If those of you don't know what a mimic is a thing in several aspects of fiction and fantasy that actually that is basically a fake treasure chest. And then when you try to go in, it's like, surprise! It's actually a monster. You know, totally unrelated to Go-Go. I know we were just talking about Go-Go, but I swear that's incidental. Oh crap! There we go. All right. Optionals are a great thing in a video game, in just about any video game. Optionals usually have to follow a relatively set pattern. A, they need to be optional. I know. Bear with me here. You jackass. B, hang on, there we go. B, an optional has to be something that is rewarding. Now, we've actually talked about the different types of reward before, and there are quite a few, actually. It is possible to have a reward of a new bit of a lore, right? A new story or a cutscene or whatever. It is possible to have a bit of an optional boss that gives you good amount of experience, or good MP, or lots of gil, or gold, or whatever, or gives you a unique item. In fact, most of the optionals in FF series in general tend to give you some kind of treasure for beating them, and this guy is no exception. He will be giving us an item which is really useful for Sabin, actually. Once we defeat him. If we defeat him, we might not... Hang on. The other point of an optional is they're there to give the player some challenge. That's the thing. An optional follows, or I'm sorry, I really should phrase this. An optional should follow different rules than standard bosses. Standard bosses, you have to follow a very specific mindset with regards to difficulty curve. You don't want them to be too hard. You don't want them to be too easy. But you want where they sit on the relative scale of difficulty to also be appropriate to their character. In other words, to use one of my favorite examples, in FF4DS, when you actually fight Golbez, the one and only time in the whole game you actually fight Golbez, he's bloody hard. He crushes you if you're not prepared for that. Yeah, Dragon Claw, that's what we get. One of the best weapons in the game for Sabin. Right behind the tiger thing. Anyways, so he should be that difficult because in lore, Golbez is that powerful, right? But, you know, a boss like this guy I just fought, he shouldn't be that hard. And so optionals don't actually follow the same rule set. An optional can, and in my opinion should, be harder than a normal boss, because that's one of the benefits of an optional. It is optional. You're going out of your way to fight this guy either for brownie points, to show that you can do it, or because you want some kind of benefit, right? This is especially true in a New Game Plus game. If I go out of my way to fight the Son of Sun, which is an irritating ass fight, if you'll forgive me for being blunt about it. It's one of the only fights I don't like in all of Chrono Trigger, one of two, the other one being the Ret Knight. But when you go out of your way to fight the Son of Sun, it should be harder because, damn it, I want that reward, and I want to earn it. Make sense? Now, this is, of course, just my opinion. There are many different perspectives on this. However, this is a fairly common opinion. You could look at a fairly large number of games, not just RPGs, but games in general, where the optionals are treated like that. Optionals are harder. Okay? Now, the Kingdom Hearts series is probably one of the better examples of this. Now, I'm going to answer Scorpion's Wrath question really quick. The best optional in any game ever? That's heavily debatable, because you're talking about just plain old optionals, right? And there are actually a lot of optionals. I mean, let's look at FF4 really quick. We have in FF4 Ashura, Leviathan, Ashura, Leviathan, Odin. And I feel like I'm missing another one. This is just in the original SNES version, by the way. I feel like there's another one that is just an optional. And then there's the super optional, which is Bahamut. We'll talk about super optionals in a moment. So of all of the, that's not actually a huge amount. Let's use another example. Let's use FF6. FF6 has a ridiculous number of optionals. Technically, virtually everything in the World of Ruin boss fight is actually an optional. Um, so yeah, I can't possibly pick just one as my favorite. There's simply too many. um, don't do it, Bragwin. Don't do it. I swear if I was doing better off, Bragwin, right now, I'd get you one for Christmas or something. But right now my money's a little tight for obvious reasons. Um, by the way, to answer Sonic Doctor's question, I get that question so many different times. Um, best FF to start on, 4 on the DS, even though it's hard, is still a great game. So if she's up for the difficulty. 5 on the GBA is a great game to start with, although, no, I'm sorry, no, I'm saying that wrong. 6 on the GBA is a great game to start with. 5 is a terrible game to start with because it is actually really difficult if you don't know what the hell you're doing. 4 on the GBA version is an okay one to start with because it's nowhere near as difficult. In fact, it's actually the easiest of the FF4 versions, in my opinion, because they add a lot of extra stuff gear-wise and the ability to change your party out in the end game, which basically makes you a death machine. 9 is kind of a good one to start with, even though you're going to miss a lot of stuff in 9, so that's something to be kept in mind when it comes to that. 10 is actually the one I almost always recommend to start with. 10 is separate from the rest of the FFs, feels different from the rest of the FFs, with basically the exception of the optional stuff. The Omega Ruins and the final dungeon is actually a very easy game, all things considered. It's got a good UI. It's got good graphics, it's got okay voice acting, it's got good music. It's overall an easy game to enter into the FF series, in my opinion. And I've said this many times, I've said this since all the way back in the FF Marathon. The FF10 is a good, easy game to go ahead and ease your way into the franchise. From that point, I usually recommend you go back and start with the older stuff. Pretty much starting with 4 unless you're really interested in the series, in which case you can go ahead and go back to 1. If you're playing 1 or 2, play the GBA version. If you're playing 3, play the DS. If you're playing 4, play the GBA if you're not liking the difficulty, DS if you want the difficulty, and so forth and so on. So, moving on. And yeah, I agree, Kulex in Super Mario RPG is a really fun boss fight. Very difficult, too. Properly difficult. And Kulex is, I mean, Super Mario RPG is a great game in general. So, super optionals. It's easier to talk about super optionals because the difference is very simple. A super optional is top of the heap. There's almost never a really good, worthwhile benefit of fighting the super optional. Sometimes there is. Because it's the best version, Kay. You know I'm right. It's just the hardest version. But anyways, so super optionals, they're the top of the heap. They're the strongest thing in their given game. FF4 original, Bahamut is the super optional. FF3 DS, it's the Iron Giant. FF4 DS, it's the combined elemental thing on the moon. I don't remember what it's called, but that thing. And the Giant of Babel. Sometimes there are multiple super optionals that are basically equivalent in difficulty because they're different kind of difficulties, right? For example, Ruby Weapon is a fight you have to think your way around the triggers of the fight in FF7. FF7 also has Emerald Weapon, which is basically just a stat fight. If you're a good enough level and can do enough damage in a short enough time to endure the hits, then you can defeat Emerald Weapon, right? FF8 has the Ultimate Weapon, which is probably the weakest of all the various super optionals because it's kind of a cheat fight. Ultimate Weapon in 8 is basically a one-trick pony, and it's kind of pathetic. Then there's the Omega, no, not Omega, Paragon in FF10. And again, there's nothing past that, Scorpion's Wrath. There is just the super optional or the super optionals. It's the top of the heap. There's nothing above it. That's the whole point. Now, the Kingdom Hearts games tend to do it in a weird way, but this is what I like about the Kingdom Hearts series, or rather, one of the things I like about the Kingdom Hearts series. Each super optional is also a story boss. In other words, those super optionals are that strong in lore, and defeating them gets you lore, gets you story. I don't want to spoil too much about Kingdom Hearts, but Kingdom Hearts 1 had the cloaked individual. Kingdom Hearts 2 originally had Sephiroth, which was, or excuse me, Kingdom Hearts 1 had the cloaked individual and Sephiroth. Kingdom Hearts 2 had Sephiroth, which was actually a joke. And the Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix has the Lingering Will. That's the super optional. Um, Birth by Sleep has technically two super optionals, the cloaked individual and the armor. And which one is harder? And again, there's different types of difficulties between those two fights. Although the armor was intended to be fight in a group, so most people consider that the harder fight. Etc., etc. I personally like that perspective on things, having the super optional be a lore significance. FF4 is probably the first real example of that, but Bahamut. You go up to the moon, you fight through a dungeon of doom, which is populated with tons of behemoths, which we've already talked about how horrible behemoths are, and then you fight Bahamut, and then you get a nice little cutscene and a little bit of lore about how he's like the originator and blah blah blah. I talked about that during the marathon. And then you get him as a summon. So it's a gameplay benefit, it's a lore benefit, and you get the brownie points of having done it, right? Pretty good super optional, all things considered. Nemesis, that was the one in 10. That's the one I was thinking about. Yeah, FF9 has one of the worst super optionals in my opinion. I don't mean that gameplay-wise. Ozma is actually brilliantly difficult, the way they designed him. He's actually one of the only bosses in the FF history that has that unique trick to him. But he's a giant ball of goop, you know? Anyways. So that's super optionals. Now, there's one last thing. You might be asking, well, why am I bringing up super optionals in FF6? Those of you out there who've played this game know there is no super optional in FF6. There was originally supposed to be, the Kaiser Dragon. In fact, a lot of the data for the Kaiser Dragon is actually still in the game. They just never implemented it. In the GBA version, they actually re-implemented the Kaiser Dragon as a proper super optional. And you get the Diablos Magicite as a reward for doing so. Whoops. There we go. If you're going to ask me why the Kaiser Dragon never made it to the final cut, my answer is I have no idea. I imagine it was cut for time and otherwise considerations, because I really don't know. So now that we've been staring at this screen for a bit here. Now here's a question though. It is debatable as to whether or not the many optionals of FF6 count. And I'm curious of your opinion on this. I'll give my opinion in a minute, but do the many optional bosses in FF6 count? Yes, they did, Samurai. That is correct. I mean, if you look at the two sprites, it's pretty damn close. But yeah, originally after you unlock the dragon, you defeat all 8 dragons, you were supposed to unlock the Kaiser Dragon. Dun, dun, dun. King of all dragons, because Bahamut was already an Esper. But when now you're probably like, well, what do you mean by optional bosses? Well, Chatternook is an optional boss. The Magimaster is an optional boss. What else we got? Tritok is an optional boss. Umaro is an optional boss. All the dragons are optional bosses, etc., etc. I think you get the idea. Do these count as optional or not? Like I said, your opinion first, then I'll give you mine. Daryl sleeps here. Dullahan, who can be a weird fight. See, the damage he does is dependent on the last digit of your magic stat. Weird, right? And apparently mine is not set up particularly well right now. I don't feel like trying. Yay! Isn't he? Okay. He's not from anything Nero's as. Kulex is designed to be just generally FFE. Like the idea that he is going to be kind of like a boss that would be from a Final Fantasy game. There's actually some hints in his design that he was based off of, like, partially off of Golbez, partially off of Cecil, you know, a bunch of FF4 references in him. This is a good song. This is also freaking brilliant. If they did this in full proper 3D awesome, I would barely change this scene. I would still make it so you're going down the staircase, and in the background, the scene plays out in Setzer's memories. Because this is just awesome. I'd place him in FF4, Nero's as. The idea of having the cutscene happen in the background while we're going down the stairs is directorial genius. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put this under... We'll put this under graphics, this particular plus, because that's a directing kind of a thing. This, without bugging, this is the one and only time we'll see the Falcon in the World of Balance. Sorry, back. It's also pretty well established the Falcon is actually a better ship than the Blackjack. Yeah, here you go, Falcon in the original world. But then again, the Falcon was designed to be an airship. The Blackjack was designed to be a flying casino. So the way they talk, it's pretty clear she was trying to not break records, not speed records, but height records. She wanted to fly up. Well, it's pretty obvious based on that why she crashed. The physics of flying a ship up into the thinner atmosphere, let's just say that certain aspects of a ship just kind of stop working at that point. Hell, we have that problem with planes too. We had to specifically design certain types of craft to be able to go up that high. And Setzer never saw her again, that he's aware of. The wreck of the Falcon was found a full year later in a distant land. Now I want you to picture for a moment going for a year not knowing what happened to you, your best friend slash lover slash whatever Daryl was with him. There was obviously a strong connection between the two of them. And again, once again emphasizing just how much money and resources Setzer had access to, he was able to rebuild and restore the Falcon and then bury it. This right here is when FF6 finally turns around. This is when the despair finally breaks. From this point on, this song will be the song, not just for the airship, but for the overworld, which was a brilliant decision, in my opinion, to go ahead and keep the continuous music going for the new overworld. Searching for Friends. Great song. For the first time, we have a real shot at actually doing something. Up until this point, we have been defiant. We have been, screw it, I'm not going to let things get worse. I don't have access to tools or resources or the party, but damn it, I'm going to do what I can. But now we have a ship. Now we have an advantage which is so significant and so sufficient that we actually have something we never had up until this point. We have a chance. Yeah, this needs a music sound. Plus, this is just awesome. Now, this is an interesting tidbit. By more or less complete happenstance, we happen to go by, as we're flying up, we happen to go by one of the carrier pigeons going from Zozo to Miranda, right? I'm still okay with that. I'm not going to call that bad writing. That is a coincidence. There's no denying that's a coincidence. It's a huge coincidence. But it's not forced down your throat. They don't spend too much time on it. And it's optional. I could just leave. I don't have to fight that. Or do this. I don't have to do this. However, it's a good thing because it gives you a breadcrumb trail to follow. It gives you this idea of, okay, this is where you should start, especially if you're playing this game for the first time, because this is the freedom point. Remember I was talking about this back in the World Balance? We have the Falcon. I can go anywhere in the entire game right now. There is nowhere I cannot access as of this moment in time at all. I can literally go straight to Kefka's Tower and beat the game. I could go to the Phoenix Cave. I could go recruit Sabin. I could do Terra's thing. I could go to Doma. I can literally go anywhere in the entire game now. So they have given you an unprecedented amount of freedom, and this is also the only FF to ever do this. For those of you not aware of this, this deserves another gameplay and story plus, because this is brilliant design. This was them wanting to add a Western style of gameplay to a Final Fantasy game. They deliberately said, you know what? You know what's really big in the West? More open world, more open freedom, less linear gameplay in their RPGs. Why don't we dabble in that? Why don't we go ahead and spread our wings a little bit and see what we can do? And so this was the result, the World of Ruin. Some people, I have heard back in the day, complain a lot about the World of Ruin because they claim that the story stops in the World of Ruin. My response to those people is usually something along the lines of, are you not paying attention? There's a ton of story in the World of Ruin. World of Ruin is basically the Mass Effect 2 of the games. Now, I know, that's going to just be damning it because some of you out there hate Mass Effect 2, and that's fine. But my point that I'm trying to make here, World of Ruin is all about character. It is all about character. There is very little that is done in the World of Ruin that is significant to plot or setting or anything like that. We know the plot. The plot is Kefka's over there, and we need to bring him down. What we are seeing throughout the World of Ruin is the climax of everyone's character arcs. Terra finishing her character arc, Cyan finishing his character arc, and Cyan actually has the most character development in all the World of Ruin too. Gao comes to grips with who and what he is. Setzer has finished his arc at this point in time. Celis has finished her arc. Edgar has finished his arc. Sabin is going to be leading up to the finale of his arc, which actually happens at the ending, etc., etc., etc. It is all about, here is the final step in each of these characters' arcs that they have been going through, in some cases since before the game even started. This is true with Strago and his despair point, and his ability to finally set to rest the incident with Hidden. It's true with Realm, who manages to interact with and assist her grandfather, I couldn't even think of the time there, in a way that proves that she is not useless, and despite her age, she can still help and be useful, blah, 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 blah. I could go down the list. It's all awesome. It's a little bit of a pity that we get virtually no character stuff for Gogo and Umaro. Or Gao, actually. There is some character stuff that is implied with Gao. The fact that Cyan knows about Gao, knows where he is, and otherwise is fully cognizant of him, has always implied to me that Cyan and Gao linked up relatively quickly. I should do this really quick. After the fall, and have spent at least a decent amount of the previous year interacting with each other, and having that surrogate father-son thing going on between the two of them. That's just my perspective on that. I don't know if that's true, and I don't care. So naturally, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the most important party member in the game. Bear with me, this is actually, I am doing a specific strategy here, and I can explain it if anybody wants me to. But nobody does, because y'all suck. Suck! No, seriously, okay, here's the strategy. When you get to, okay, every time you get a new party member, there's something called an average party level, okay? And every time a new party member joins the party, it calculates their level based on the average party level, okay? So, for example, I forget the exact numbers, but like Locke is +2. Oh, thank God. Locke is +2, for example. I'm just making this up. I don't know the actual numbers, but like Edgar is +3, that kind of a thing. So, for example, if you take all the levels of the party, average them out, and then add +3 to that, when Edgar joins the party, he is average party level +3. Make sense? When the World of Ruin starts, that average party level is reset, and the levels of every character in the game, with one exception, are all reset. They're removed. It is actually possible, under the right circumstances, for characters to lose levels in the World of Ruin if you do it in a specific way. Because then when you get Celis at the beginning of that section on the island, Celis's level is based on the average party level, which can be down, and then, you know, when you get Sabin, the average party level changes, and then when you get Edgar, and so forth and so on. You with me so far? There's one exception to this. Gao. From a coding perspective, when you hit the World of Ruin, Gao his level isn't reset. His code has been changed as if he leapt onto the Veldt. As if, like, when the airship collapsed and the world was destroyed, Gao suddenly cast Leap on the Veldt and is now on the Veldt. So his level's stuck at whatever level he was, okay? So if now, in order to maximize my efficiency and minimize leveling, what you want to do is start leveling with a minimal party, which is the one you're staring at. This is the minimal party right here. Setzer, Edgar, Celis, Gao. Because Gao's level doesn't change based on average level, and those three are the minimum to get to this point in time. You level these four guys, and the average party level moves with them. So when you go get another party member, their level will now be boosted as a result of having leveled these guys, because the average party level has been pushed forward. You with me? Now, this is not efficient for stat min-maxing, because you're going to lose out all those stats you could have gotten by, you know, having the Espers equipped, right? But I don't care about that for most speedrun strategies, or indeed a thing like this where I'm not 100%ing or whatever. So, in other words, I'm just trying to minimize the amount of leveling I have to do in the game by doing it in this method. So I hope that makes sense, and if it doesn't, well, I got nothing. I'm going to save each time I get in the airship right now, because holy moly. Okay, so we're going straight here to level, by the way, because I'm insane. I've already talked about that, Nerozaz. Basically, no. I mean, I could try and explain it away, but basically, no. Okay, so he's got Meduan on. He's got Bismarck on, she's got Ifrit on. I don't actually care about what you have, so we'll do that. For those of you not aware of where I am, this is Dragon Forest, or more accurately, Dinosaur Forest. This is actually referenced in the game. There is a single reference from an NPC who says that there's these dinosaurs. It's badly translated in the English version. They actually call them dragons in the English version. But there's these dinosaurs up there. There are two encounters, well, technically three encounters here. A pincher attack, which you cannot avoid, which if I get it, I will die. A single Tyrannosaurus Rex. Or, and this is much more deadly, a Brachiosaur. Okay, so here we go. Now this guy can literally one-shot me right now. So we're going to try and kill him before he does that. I basically have to use this trick. The Doom trick. Come on, there we go. In order to kill these guys. These guys have a lot of health. Like 15,000 or something like that. Where's you don't know Doom. You don't know Doom. Oh god. Okay. They can cast Meteor, which will do about 1,500 to 3,000 damage each person. So yeah, that will completely crush me. These guys also give the single largest amount of XP in the entire game. The Brachiosaurs and the Tyrannosaurus Rexes both give, again, the most XP in the entire game. Nothing gives more XP than these guys. They also give 3 MP. And a decent chunk of loot, because these guys can give the Imp Halberds, which is part of the Imp trick, which I'm not going to talk about now. So yeah, this would be a good time for questions. If anybody wants to ask me something about this game, that takes priority. If anyone wants to ask me about something about other games, I'm about to die. It's very likely I'm about to die. Oh yeah, by the way, they also hit like a truck. Forgot to add that little point. If either of these cast Meteor, this is over. There's no reason to heal on these guys. They'll just one-shot me at this low level. See, that's just, yeah, there's no bypassing that. It's just death. When I get really crazy, I'll come here with a single person. For those of you not aware, in FF6 and several other games of its like, exp is split up. So let's say, for example, I'm fighting this enemy and he gives 2,200 exp. I know that. So I'm going to get 4,400 exp after this fight, right? Well, if I have, and that's calculated with 4 party members. If I have 1 party member, I quadruple that. So instead of getting 2,200, I get 8,800 exp for an individual person, because it's split up. Make sense? Now again, my goal here is average party level. So I am actually going to be leveling all 4 of these guys. But, yeah. Hey, Daniel. Hey, look, another theory. That's awesome. I was actually asking about Daryl and Gogo earlier and what people thought about them. I know Daryl may not say like I say, but no, I have actually heard about the Gogo being Bannon theory. There are some reasons to support that. There's actually, and there's some reasons against it. I've already talked about all those basically. I'm curious what you think, if you agree or disagree. Yeah, let's go and get some real gear on a few people here. Oops. I don't want that. Jeez, really? I need some better weapons for her. Let's get rid of the Genji gloves for right now. And give you more running shoes. Sure. There. Okay. Oh, get in a save. Now, this is something that is actually I really should say, pretty common back in the day. It's usually referred to as the Peninsula of Power, after one of the earlier Dragon Quests, I want to say. Dragon Quest or FFs, I forget which. For those of you not aware of the significance, the idea here is that most JRPGs in general have like 1 spot or 2 spots. In FF6 there's actually 2 spots that are like the optimal leveling spots, and they're pretty much designed just to be that. It's designed to be a spot where you can just sit and really push for endgame levels and endgame experience and magic points and God knows what else, right? FF7 has several like this as well, although most people consider just the end dungeon to be the best place for that. FF4 had a few places like this, etc., etc. You get the idea. From a purely design perspective, it makes a lot of sense to have this kind of a thing. Most peninsulas of power, like the Dinosaur Forest here, are specifically designed so that it's not easy. It's not like you walk in and you just walk around and get experience. Usually the enemies there are very tricky or very difficult, and you have to have a pretty specific strategy specifically to be able to defeat those enemies, which I do. I know exactly how to defeat these guys, and I'm sorry, Titans. And the desert down by Miranda, which is the other spot. Now, the catch here is I feel like these kind of locations, this is just my perspective. This is why this is not getting a plus for gameplay, because even though it's a good idea, it's not actually that well highlighted. I actually would have preferred it if there was some kind of in-game hint about these locations, you know, so they could, so the player could be like, aha, now I know what you're going to say. Well, there is a hint, and you're right, there is a hint. It's in this cave right here. There's a guy here who talks about the Dinosaur Forest. It's a really vague hint, and it's badly translated, but it still counts. But there's no hints about the desert over here. By the way, I'm wincing every time I'm flying, for those of you who know why. There's no hints about this desert. This desert is by and far the absolute best place to raise magic and to get gold in the entire game. There is nothing better than it, and it's some decent exp while you kill the sandworms. There is one other spot to level, which is actually ironically right frickin' here. I didn't know about this spot until I started speedrunning this game more modernly, and this spot right here can be nuked with some proper rod usage and gives a decent, this is not what I wanted, a decent amount of experience and MP, allowing you to push through a few levels relatively quickly. Yes, Scorpion. I absolutely think that would work. But nobody else would like it because, as we've already seen, when you make a Metroid game that doesn't actually star Samus, everyone just completely loses everything, their sanity. Because the concept of a Gaiden game is so alien to people. Ugh. You know, here, Stray Cat. Yes, in Tangiers are World of Balance only, okay? The only way to encounter them here is to have encountered them in the World of Balance, and then to go to the Veldt and get lucky. So obviously completely useless for the purposes of grinding. Yeah, by the way, the frogs attack with jumping. Come on. Jump takes a long time in 6 for some reason. I feel like it was coded differently than from 5 and 4. So anyways, these are not the enemies I was actually referring to. I think I need to be out of the forest for what I'm talking about. Still get a ton of gold, though. Like, that was 10,000 gold from a single encounter. So you can get your gold on very quickly, because it's only 200 gold to hit the inn here. Which is another reason this is such a good spot for leveling. Hey, that Metroid was a badass, Titans. That one Metroid in Super, you know. And I guess in Prime, too. This is another thing I do like about this. You know what? I've decided this does get a plus. Gameplay plus. These are not what I want. The gameplay plus here, if you're curious, is that it's, from this point on in the game, it's actually pretty easy to be able to progress, basically. Almost no matter what you do from this point in time, you will have, you know, enemies will be giving much more experience, much more experience, much more gold, and much more, really? Phoenix? Bard as a random summon, if you're not aware. Much more gold, much more experience, and much more MP than anything did back in the World of Balance, not counting the floating continent, obviously. And so, even if you're getting your ass handed to you, as long as you manage to kill anything, you can actually continue to get stronger, continue to get better, and like I said, continue to progress. So I think that deserves a plus to the gameplay. And as usual, I have given my reasons why, so you can't accuse me of bias, so screw you. I can't even imagine what this is going to be like when I get to Chrono Trigger. So here's Chrono Trigger, and then I'll get to the fair and I'll have like 20 pluses on everything. Hey, Bregvin. I have no food, Bregvin. You know what you must do. Alright, screw it. I don't like this leveling spot anyways. It's efficient because you can nuke this stuff with the rods at super low level. That's the only reason it's here. Yay! I always love dropping my phone, Titans. I do it all the time. Occasionally I knock the battery out. Yeah, just to point it out, there was a leveling spot. I guess it's basically just around here. I think it's like the whole island here is a pretty good leveling spot. By the way, I hate to point this out, because I'm pretty sure this was kind of unintentional, but... Oh god, there comes the stew! Okay, got that one. Whew, thank you, Raven. No. I'm pretty sure this is unintentional, but this is Doma. There's no one here. They're all dead. It is a completely empty nation/castle. And I like the idea that Doma is the place you can't reach anymore because it is completely chopped off from the rest of the world, fully and completely completing that idea that Doma is gone, that Doma was the old and has been completely replaced by the new, to the point where you can't even reach it anymore. That's almost assuredly me reading too much into it, but I still like the implication there. All right. Am I? Oh, I could get. No, I'm gonna go ahead and be efficient. I'll be efficient. So how many of you out there just kind of get a little bit tense whenever you fly around on the World of Ruin map, especially at this point in time? Yeah, just there's the question. I posed to you. Oh my God, really? Oh God, this is about to be super bad. Oh geez, okay, that's not as bad as it could have been. That could have been much worse than that. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Quickly. That's horrible, Samurai. Okay, so that's the Brachiosaur, technically the strongest enemy in the game. Gives an insane amount of experience and 10 MP. He can also drop arguably the best relic in the entire game. That would be the Economizer. Would you like to know what the Economizer is? Of course you would. The Economizer reduces the magic cost of any spell that costs magic to 1. That also affects lores for Strago, by the way. So you could cast Ultima, which normally casts like 200 mana, for 1 mana. Yeah, that's why I say the Economizer is arguably one of the best relics in the game, because even if you're not going with a magic-heavy party, having that on someone or being able to rotate that on someone who has cures gives you almost unlimited healing in and out of combat. So yeah, I just realized I need to set up a couple things up slightly differently here. You need to be on that. And yep, you're still learning that. If you're going to level here, by the way, especially if you're this low level, save every level, or save every fight. All it takes is a bad pincer attack or a little bit of RPG, or RNG, excuse me, to kill you. I mean, these guys just have a chance, like I said, to literally just kill me, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's ignoring the fact that they also have the chance to just hit me hard enough to kill me. And, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Bragon. Imagine just people wandering around just casting Ultima. I've heard some people theorize that the reason there is no Economizer and instead is just the Gold Stud over in Chrono Trigger is because they looked at the Economizer like, this is ridiculously overpowered. But in defense of the Economizer, you have to defeat one of the hardest enemies is arguably the hardest enemy in the entire game, the Brachiosaur, which only spawns here randomly, so it's a random chance to get it, it's a very difficult enemy, and it's a random chance to drop. I think that's okay. And Edgar's dead. Sure. Be useful, Go. Make it so they can't one-shot us with melee attacks. Hey, Tarkin. Tell me, Tarkin. Why are you so evil? Man, no bet here, Titans. I want to stress, this one T-Rex can still kill me. If he gets off a meteor, it is over. But I think I got this. Yep, okay, I'm good. Man, I am hungry, holy moly. That's true. You can get a second gem box with the Economizer. Although I usually don't. I admittedly usually value Economizers more than gem boxes. But when I did my 100% run, I actually got 3 gem boxes, so each party, you know, in the final dungeon would actually have one. Where's he at? He's still there. She doesn't matter. And yeah, he's literally on the verge of learning that. Okay. Yeah, exactly, Prog. By the way, in case you didn't get the joke, a T-Rex can cast Meteor. Ha ha ha. And if you think that's not funny enough, Brachiosaurs, the other dinosaur, can cast Disaster. By the way, if you get the... I actually don't remember it is. It's either the Rage or the Sketch, or no, excuse me, the Control of Brachiosaurus. I think it's the Rage that gives you the option to cast Disaster. Disaster is an incredibly powerful spell. The only thing that's not powerful about it is it doesn't do any damage. What it does do is it basically casts every status effect in the game. Each one has a separate chance to hit the target. Now, obviously, this is FF6, not FF5, so that's not as useful for you as it would be. Can you imagine having the Disaster spell in FF5 where half the bosses you can actually do status effects on? Here, I'm just going to hit you with everything. If you're paying attention, yes, Disaster is basically a trumped-up version of Bad Breath. Yeah, like I said. I was doing something. Yes, you. Oh, hang on. Is he done with this yet? Not yet. Okay, so why don't you... I want you on a melee, and I don't have one, so we'll put you on that for right now. Yeah. A Brachiosaur cast Disaster on a T-Rex. Then the T-Rex, in his confusion, cast Meteor, and that's how the dinosaurs died, guys. FF6 has answered the question. Back in the day, I heard several people argue that Brachiosaurs were technically the super optional of FF6. Yeah, exactly, Samurai. I keep waiting for one of these to cast Meteor. Usually I have much worse luck with these guys. Usually I'm like, hey, I'm going to go level here, and then Meteor dead. Reload. Alright, try it again, get a couple fights in. Meteor dead. I've already gotten a few levels though, so I think I could withstand... yeah, looks like Edgar could withstand a hit from a Meteor right about now, maybe. Hey, Javan. I'm... sorry? I'm trying to understand the logic there, and I'm failing, but I apologize, man. This is my sympathy. That probably doesn't matter. So, okay, I'm just pointing something out. I've had Setzer on an Esper that increases his magic power per level up every level up he's had since forever. You can kind of see now, because Setzer now actually has pretty much the highest magic power stat of everyone I've got, except for Realm, but he has actually surpassed Celis at 36 down there. Now, Celis I've been turning into a melee. You notice her vigor is higher. Edgar is kind of being turned into a melee too, so his drill does as much damage as possible. Gao's just kind of all over the place, but I'm going to be turning him into a melee because of Cat Scratch. That's how I tend to think of it as, okay, this character is a melee type, this character is a mage type, this character is a tank, so I equip them with, you know, I guess that would be Bismarck, Tritok, and Bahamut, respectively, for those three stats for them to be optimal. And of course, Edgar also is level 33, whereas everyone else is level 29. Why? Now, it is actually possible for you to get multiple experience eggs. I don't remember how. I don't remember what you have to actually go wager at the Coliseum to get an X-Bag. Feel free to share if you happen to know off the top of your head. I'd have to look it up. But I know you can get multiple X-Bags. Actually, maybe you can't get one in the arena. I know you can get multiple X-Bags in this game without cheating. I only remember off the top of my head the one, which is the one you get in Daryl's Tomb. That's the one I always get. But I don't actually remember... I actually don't remember where the others are. I just realized I have the Charm Bangle on. I should probably take that off. Let's give you double earrings. You are a full-on mage. We'll give you sprint shoes. And... where is it? Oh, there it is, Atlas Armor. Thank you, Puff of Logic. I knew there was some way to get other X-Bags, and I know I've done it without cheating. Just couldn't remember. Okay, so Elixir to rename card, to Marvel Shoes, to Tintanabur, to X-Bag. Okay. Thank you. That's what it is. That's exactly it right there. You're right. I remembered the Tintanabur thing because I remember once upon a time thinking, how the heck do I get more of those? And then, you know, Back in the day, I didn't actually have a list of all the things you could wager in the Coliseum. That's another thing. I'll talk about the Coliseum in a bit. Oh, is that for a merit award? Well, either way, in some direction or another, I do know there's a way to get additional XPEGs. I just don't know the exact method. Alright, I want you on... no one, apparently. We'll put you on Siren. And you... there we go. I've actually done playthroughs where I turn everyone into a mage. Back in the day, I've talked about this before, back before, I'd say about to FF9's era, I was like mage heavy. Every RPG I played, I was the mage, ow. I was the mage, and all of my party members in the games I played were mages, and it was mage, 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 mage. You know, I'd play FF6, and my strategy was lots and lots of casters. I wouldn't melee anything. Somewhere along the line, and again, it was about an FF9's era-ish, so like around 2000 or so. That just kind of switched to the total opposite. Nowadays, I'm like very melee heavy. Most of my actual strategies for FF6, when I'm not speedrunning, or indeed any game like this, tend to focus more on really setting up my melees to be much, much stronger. The way I play FF7 is probably the best example of what I'm talking about there. It's funny because a melee can actually do much better and more damage in FF6 if properly set up than a mage can. Which I find funny because this is FF6, the game about magic and espers and all that fun stuff, but anyways. Yeah, notice Edgar's HP is way ahead of everyone else's too. His stamina innately goes up pretty high. And yeah, magic-resistant enemies, it's just like, how do I deal with this? Across like any RPG too. Breath of Fire 2 was a really bad one for me. For those of you who don't know, magic is kind of weak in Breath of Fire 2, and it's also very expensive. So it's really, really easy to run out of mana and run out of that resource very quickly in Breath of Fire 2 if you're leaning on magic. So it's like, It's kind of true in Breath of Fire 3 as well, now that I think about it. Breath of Fire 2 is awesome, by the way. If you haven't played it, you should. You should also probably play it with cheats on. Just saying. Breath of Fire 2 is a pretty hard game, and if you're not interested in a pretty hard game, you should probably play it with cheats on. But it is a good game. It does definitely deserve a look at. It's my personal favorite of the BOF series. Yeah, you're the only one actually learning anything right now. Let's go ahead and push a little bit more for levels. Tempted to turn the stream off while I just run around the Dragon Forester. Does anyone else have anything you want to talk about or discuss, ask, anything like that, while I'm just running around killing dinosaurs? I don't have much to talk about for this section. I will have things to talk about for later sections, obviously. In fact, basically every other thing I do from this point on, I'm going to have at least something to talk about. Yeah, the experience egg is why Edgar is leveling so much. You know what? I'm going to look up the other experience egg thing. Should I run to get to Chinese? Absolutely. In fact, who was here last night when you guys voted for me to get Chinese? Raise your hands. Were any of you here? Alright, experience egg, also known as the growth egg in the new translation. Yes, I did. I absolutely am. I already know the next game, and I plan to do it pretty much immediately after this one. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you can morph a couple of enemies, or you can bet... Okay, so let me just pull up the Dragon Neck Coliseum here. I need, like, the whole list. There we go. Flow of charts. Okay, so I want an XPEG, or a growth egg, excuse me. Growth egg. You can also get some good Genji armor in this. Hang on. Okay. It looks like this is not exactly what I was hoping for. Yeah, Samurai, can you imagine me doing a lore run of WoW? I actually have spent a lot of time over the last few weeks um, figuring out exactly the specifics of the logistics of how I'm going to do that. Anyone want to hear some of the details of that, of how I'm going to actually be doing that lore run? Yeah, by the way, the next game's Chrono Trigger. I'm not even going to try and hype it up or lie about it. Next game, Chrono Trigger. I am freaking excited about playing Chrono Trigger again. Hells to the yes. Oh, that would be insane, Samurai. And I know a decent amount about the code behind WoW, too, so I could really dig into the game like that. Okay, where am I going? I'm going this way. Wait. Yeah, sure. Let's just test the RNG, shall we? Because I'd like to get an additional XPEG right now, because that would really help. So this is going to be very RNG. This may turn out really bad, like really bad. We'll see how this works out. Ribbon. We're gonna get a save in. Hang on, let me check something really quick. Yes, I did, Taito. Still got the scars, too. So, yes, I would like to fight in the Colosseum. I will wager my 1 Tintinabar to get my 1 XPEG. I feel like there's a few other Tintinabars you can get in the game. I don't remember it, I have to look it up. Dark Force, oh, this is going to be great. So yeah, this is going to be pure RNG. We're going to set up a save state right here, and we'll just see what happens. So this is the Colosseum. This is a good time to talk about this. I'm going to talk about WoW in a second. The Colosseum is RNG, 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 RNG. The way this works is that you lose control of your character. Amongst everything that your character can do, they will do it. If you don't understand what I mean by that, picture it this way. I have Edgar out there, right? He's got a decent amount of spells learned to him. So he has a random chance to fight, tool, magic, okay? One of those 3 things. Now if he fights, it's obvious, he just fights. If he uses a tool, it will randomly select one of his tools to use. I don't get to choose. If he does magic, it will randomly select... Whoops. Oh, crap. Okay, load. If he selects magic, it will randomly select one of his magics to use. Now, I knew a few people back in the day who actually would come in here with like a mage-heavy type guy who knows every spell and whose magic power is through the roof. But that's actually bad strategy. I have my own strategy for this, which I'll talk about in a second. Because it's bad strategy because they might cast Imp, or they might cast Haste, or they might cast Cure, even if they don't need it. It is 100% random what they do. It is literally just rolling the dice. Yeah, Sabin is terrible in the Colosseum. Yeah, so he's going to cast Fire too. So this system is bizarre. Now, the funny thing is this system is actually very, very easy to break. All you need is a guy whose name is Umaro. Umaro is how I crush 99% of the Colosseum stuff I do. You know why? Because what he does is determined by his relics, and everything he does hits the other guy. In other words, effectively there is no difference between Umaro in normal combat and Umaro on the Colosseum. So you get him set up with the one relic, I forget what it is. It's not the Blizzard Orb, that's worthless. Set him up with the other relic that gives him the lunge attack, and then you just let him go, and he will hit like a truck. And he will do tons of damage and do it very quickly. That is how I personally do the Colosseum. That's why I'm like, I'll go ahead and rush the RNG, because this is all RNG what's going to happen here. I mean, look at him. He's just fighting and casting Cure, and he's dead because he cast level 5 Doom. So let's try this another time here. I really would like this extra XP now. I don't want to go get Mog to get Umaro. That's going to throw off my average level, but I may have to. Or I may just give up on the extra XP. We'll see how this works out. And then he uses Flash, because he has the Flash on him. I mean, again, it's purely random. So is this a positive or a negative? That's difficult. I personally I think this is going to be another one of those positives and negatives. Ignore the combat side of the Colosseum for a moment. The ability to wager an item to get another item, the ability to trade up or trade down, or get multiples of other certain items, that's good. That's some good stuff. Oh, shoot. God, I just dropped this controller all over the place. That is actually, you're right. That is actually a good point, Javin. That is some good stuff. I like the application, or excuse me, not the application, but the idea of the Colosseum. However, I really, really hate the application of the Colosseum. And we've already explained this. How many times now have I been doing this? Keep in mind, if I wasn't doing this and I'm an emulator, I could still save before I come in here. In fact, you really should save before you come in here. But all that would do is mean that each one of these times, instead of hitting L, I have to go back and reload and go right back in and then do it again and then die and hit reload. It just adds grind. I don't have a fast forward button on this NES, so it's like, you know, this is grindy, stupid, and frankly dumb. The only reason I can't call it a massive negative is because you can cheat the system with Umaro. Other than that, it's just a mess of irritation, right? Look at this. Okay, let's try someone else. Let's see what Celis can do here. She's just runicking. Yeah, by the way, Celis will just randomly runic and just... Oh, hey, she did it! Fantastic. Okay, so we got our second X big. Yay! So yeah, I think this is a big negative and a big positive. I think it equals out. So, you know, plus to gameplay, minus to gameplay. Yeah, no kidding, Sway. Okay, so who's lowest level? You. I didn't even see what she did to win, too. She just kind of won. Honestly, the real reason Edgar was losing is because he's level 35. Level 5 death was literally the only thing that was killing him. Every single time. That was actually my backup strat. If Celis hadn't, you know, hadn't won, I was just gonna go and be like, hang on, I need to go get a level, guys. Okay, so actually, while I'm here, so this is the Colosseum, Dragon's Neck Colosseum. I've had some people ask me why it's called Dragon Neck Colosseum. Would anyone out there like to know why this is called Dragon Neck Colosseum? Oh yeah, Ultros is here. Yeah, pretty much, Bragon. So Ultros has been hired as a receptionist because he's in debt to the guy here. Here's the last Imperial Trooper in the entire game. He gives you a hint about Auser's thing. Here's Siegfried. Excuse me, now it's Siegfried. So this is actually the third spelling of Siegfried. We've had Siegfried, Siegfried, and Siegfried. Excuse me, Siegfried. There's actually been a lot of debate about which Siegfried is Go-Go and which one is not. By the way, based on the Japanese text, it is very, very clear that the fake Siegfried, or Siegfried, or whatever the hell his name is supposed to be, is in fact Go-Go. So, for anybody curious about that. Here's the actual gentleman who built the Colosseum. The whole world is at war, and I owe it all to Kefka. And if you ask him about Ultros, he'll be like, yeah, he owed me some money. So, Dragon's Neck Colosseum. I admittedly didn't get this myself for a long time. You ready for this? You get it yet? I forget which, Kay. I really do. I'm pretty sure it's the one in the South Figaro Cave, not the one that was at the Phantom Train. But yeah. So yeah, there's the dragon's mouth. You can even kind of see the snout over there. There's the teeth. And there's the neck. Dragon Neck Colosseum. Anyways, so now that we have two X-Bigs, it's a little more clear here. If I give you, okay, you see the map in the lower right? It's a little more clear if you look at that. I know it's hard to see, but you can see the dragon's neck a lot better there than elsewhere. Maybe there? I don't know, whatever. 23 hours. I would have beaten Chrono Trigger by now. Actually, no, I wouldn't. I'd be yammering. Because that's all I do. Yammer, yammer, yammer. So, World of Warcraft. You know, Titans, one of these days you will actually, you will get your wish. For those curious, by the way, another little tidbit about these guys, which I find hilarious. The dinosaurs are all weak to ice damage. So, first of all, that's just funny, because, you know, dinosaurs are weak to ice, right? Second of all, it means that most people don't actually come here in order to, you know, and don't use the trick I am using to level. Most people wait until they have Tritalk. Whoops. And, come on, give me an economizer. Give me an economizer. Come on, guys, give me some luck. Give me some luck. I want my economizer. Most people come here after they get Tritalk, because Tritalk teaches Ice 3. And Ice 3 will 2-shot the dinosaurs and 5-shot the brachiosaurs, even at a relatively low level. Ah, damn. That's just, like, on edge, like, come on. Oh, well. Oh, well. Anyways, World of Warcraft. So here's what I'm going to do. Obviously, you guys know I'm going to be going through all of the racial starter stuff. I've thought long and hard about if it would be possible to do what I really want to do, and it won't. Sorry. Basically, though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up 2 characters, one of which I'm going to level a little bit off camera. The other one I'm going to not even touch. Both of those characters will be Death Knights. I kind of hate to do this, but in order to do the lore run the way I want to, I kind of have to, unless I want to spend a ridiculous amount of time pushing a brand new character to 60 just for the lore run. So that's just, I mean, I can't really justify that in my mind. There is a possibility of bypassing that. I'll have to talk to Pax about that, because he and I both have a character in our 50s, but we were going to level together. Anyway, so here's how it's going to work. Very first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the Draenei and the Blood Elf starter zones. Then we are going to skip ahead, and I'm going to talk and yammer for God knows how long. And then we are going to skip ahead and start playing the Death Knight I haven't touched. The Death Knight who hasn't even been logged in yet. And then you're going to see the Death Knight starter zone, and then the Death Knight is immediately going to go into BC. And then I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to do Hellfire Peninsula on the Alliance and the Horde, both Death Knights. Then I'm going to do Zangarmarsh, Alliance and Horde. Then I'm going to do Terakar Forest with just one, and the Nagrand with both in the other, and then the mountain area with both one and the other, and then one of them will do one of the two will do Netherstorm, and then the final one, the other one, will do Shadow Moon. I also plan to periodically, when I hit certain points in time, I'm going to go out of my way to hit Orgrimmar or Stormwind and lock my level so I don't out-level content, because what I want to be able to do is something I haven't really decided if I really want to deal with the hassle yet. I'm thinking about doing a test run at some point in time in order to see the viability of this. Basically, I need to decide if I'm going to try and do the dungeons at level with the character I'm leveling, or if I'm going to completely bypass that and simply do it as a higher level. I haven't decided yet. The efficiency of the latter means I can bypass the level problem. The problem with the former, if you don't understand, let's say I'm going through 1 to 60, okay? And I hit level 15, which means I can now queue up for a couple of dungeons. But I don't want to do those dungeons until I have done the lore, the quests, leading up to that, because the vast majority of the dungeons in the game, all the way up to and including Pandaria, involve you doing stuff out in the overworld in the quests that then leads into that dungeon story-wise, okay? So I don't want to actually do that until I've done those quests. So it is possible for me in those quests to out-level the dungeons. You see the problem here? So like I said, I've got 2 methods to bypass that. Either I'll level lock myself at certain key strategic levels so I don't out-level the content, or I will simply have a level 100 lying around with a super fast flying mount to race from dungeon to dungeon to show off the dungeons at the key point as necessary for each side. Haven't decided which I'm going to do yet. So either way, we're going to be doing BC first if you're not paying attention here. We're going to do the Draenei, and then we're going to do the Blood Elf, and then we're going to switch to our Death Knight, then we're going to do BC, then we're going to do Wrath. Then we're going to go back to those characters who I haven't even touched, and we're going to do the starter zones for every race. While we're doing the starter zones for every race, or possibly up until this point in time, I haven't decided yet. Yeah, Adead, don't average level, Adead. That's what I'm doing. Absolutely, Bragman. Why wouldn't I? I anticipate there will be plenty of party members, or excuse me, viewers who will be like, "Hey, what's up?" Pretty much the whole time. So Celis is dead. That's a thing. That's a truth. Now. There we go. So then I'm going to go back, and like I said, during this whole time, you guys will be voting as to which race I go ahead and level on each side. The two most popular races, basically, will be the ones I go ahead and level from 1 to 60. So, he doesn't know. Doom. Oh, jeez, you jackass. I'll get you at some point, Samurai, don't worry. So then we're going to do, you know, the Dwarf and the Troll and the Gnome and the Forsaken and all of those starter zones. And then once we're done with all those starter zones, the two most popular races, one for each side, one Horde and one Alliance, will start leveling. Now, I have to actually pull up... It can't be Blood Elf. It can't be Blood Elf, it can't be Draenei. It has to be something else. Although I guess it doesn't have to, now that I think about it. Okay, fine. It can be a Blood Elf or a Draenei. It doesn't matter. Anyways, so then, you know, that poll will be closed, and we'll play through those 1 through 60. What I plan to do is I'm actually going to print out a map of Azeroth and the Eastern Kingdoms. I'm going to sit down with some pen and paper and with the list of a lot of numbers and a lot of things, and I'm going to have to really figure this out. I haven't done this yet, obviously. And figure out exactly the specific and direct order I do the zones in. What I'm going to do, though, I'll give you a direct example. Let's say, for example, I do Stone Talon Peak. If I do I'll do Stone Talon Peak, for example, first as a Horde, and then second, I'll do it as an Alliance. So you can, and if you don't understand what that means, Stone Talon Peak, South Barrens, Ashen Vale, there are a couple. There's Western Plaguelands. All of these zones have a single story that you can see both sides of on the Alliance and the Horde. In other words, it is one story. You're just seeing half of it on each side. Make sense? It's one of the things they did in Cataclysm I really love. Rewinding a bit, Pathan, I'll take that as a compliment. And welcome to my stream. I don't recognize your name, so shoutouts. What's up? Don't be a stranger. You got questions? Ask up. The end, I guess. Oh, Samurai, yeah, this is actually going to be more planning than the marathon. I guarantee it. When I really started thinking about the specific logistics, I have to do a huge amount of thinking for this. So anyways, once we're done with 1 through 60, once we're done with the old world and all the Cataclysm stuff, we are immediately going to switch back to those two Death Knights, who at this point in time are 80. I had to think about that for a moment. And then they're going to start doing the Cataclysm stuff. And again, we're going to be kind of doing a back and forth stuff. For example, one side will do Vashir, one side will do Hyjal, and so forth and so on, until we finished Cataclysm. And then from that point on, it's going to be kind of simple, because it's just going to be those two Death Knights going forward through Cataclysm, through Pandaria, and through Warlords, and again, doing kind of a back and a forth situation. Now, the catch is there's 3 types of zones in WoW. This is why I really need to sit down with that map and plan this out. There are Alliance-only zones, Horde-only zones. Excuse me, there's 4 types of zones. Alliance-only zones, Horde-only zones, both zones, and neutral zones. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Goldwind Forest is an Alliance-only zone. There is no Horde quests there at all, okay? Durotar is a Horde-only zone. There are no Horde quests there at all, okay? I mentioned earlier Ashen Vale and Stone Talon Peak, Western Plaguelands. Those are both zones. Both sides have different quests, different story arcs in the same zone. Neutral zones don't give a damn if you're Horde or Alliance. It's the same singular story arc through that zone, regardless of which side you are on. So I'm going to have to, so you can see why I have to plan all of this out and make sure that each given character, the Horde and the Alliance character I'll be pushing, will each be relatively balanced in how much content they see, and making sure that I do in fact see all of the content. So that's pretty much how I'm going to do it. Now, one other thing, excuse me, I forgot to mention this. When I'm going through, I will be showing off the raids as well. Of course I will. Way too much of the story of WoW is in the raids for me to skip that. I have decided, after significant thought, not to skip raids, which was my original thinking. I was going to skip several raids that I just felt weren't really sufficiently story significant. I have decided not to skip them just so I could show off all the content, because this is a lore run, and that's kind of the goal of a lore run. Talk about all the lore, talk about all the content, right? So, for example, once I have reached a certain point in that initial run going through the BC stuff, then I will show off Karazhan, then I will show off Hyjal, I will show off Black Temple, I will show off Sunwell, and I'll be talking about all the story and the characters and whatnot of all those zones as I go through. I will also be doing that relatively in order. For example, I will not be doing Sunwell until the end of BC. I will also not be doing Magister's Terrace until right before Sunwell, because even though that's a dungeon, it's story-wise, it happens right before the Sunwell. Make sense? So, like I said, I'm going to have to line all of this up in order to make sure that it's all going relatively in order. Now, some of you are probably wondering, why are you starting the lore run at level 60? Technically, I'm starting at level 55, but you get the idea. Why am I starting the lore run at 60? Why am I starting it with BC? Well, I thought about this, and I thought about doing it the other way, starting it at level 1, but when I really got to think about it, that's not accurate, because for those of you who have never actually heard me talk about this, WoW is a strong example of MMO time. In other words, when you're at a certain zone or when you're at a certain point in the quests, the storyline is at a certain point timeline-wise. You have to kind of extrapolate where it is. Now, WoW is pretty clear about this. We pretty much know exactly where everything is timeline-wise relative to everything else. So they're pretty clear about that. But the point is, BC, level 60 to 70, happens before Cataclysm, level 1 to 60. Make sense? No, of course it doesn't. Because what they did in Cataclysm is they went back and they redid all the old world, and all of that stuff, timeline-wise, happens when Cataclysm begins, which is right after Wrath. Well, actually, it's more like a year after Wrath, because the war has already begun by that point. So in order to actually go through things in order timeline-wise, I have to start at 60, and then do the 70 stuff of Northrend, which is immediately after that, and then do the 1 through 60 stuff, which is immediately after that. Does this all make sense? For anybody out there who doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about? I know those of you who've played WoW know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, stretch. So, yeah, that's how that will work. And that's why we're going to do it in that way. There are a few zones I have also debated skipping, for the same reason I debated skipping some raids. And for the same reason, I've decided not to skip them. For example, I could skip Silithus. I could skip Ruins of Ankaraji. No one would give a damn. But it is content, and I have decided not to skip it. So there you go. Now, for those of you curious, without going to a private server, I cannot showcase vanilla. To be blunt, I don't want to showcase vanilla. I didn't like vanilla. I mean, I did, but going back to vanilla, the quests in vanilla were pretty bad. However, one other thing I will be doing, I'm going to be doing the, I'm going to be doing Draenei and Blood Elf. That's how I'm starting it, right? Because that's the beginning of BC. Those two those two zones. It's actually 4 zones total, 2 zones each, and then a little bit of quests leading to, the Draenei joining the Alliance and the Blood Elves joining the Horde. And then I'm going to skip forward to the Death Knights, but I'm going to pause for a bit before I actually start the Death Knight thing. I'm going to talk about the major quest arcs that I feel are significant that happened during vanilla. Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, the entire Onyxia line I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about everything that happened with regards to the Black Dragon fight, because that's a major plot arc that continued from vanilla into Cataclysm. So I'm going to be talking about the whole Black Dragon fight thing. I'll be talking about the Scarlet Crusade arc, which goes through several zones and ends, and then I will also be talking about an arc related to that arc, the Tyrian Forging arc, which is part of the Scarlet Crusade arc. That's true, Permeus. I will be talking about the opening of the Gate of Ankaraji. I will be talking about the War of the Shifting Sands, and how that's relevant to the modern era, etc., etc. So, in other words, there are several significant vanilla quest arcs and story arcs that I really feel need to be talked about during the lore run that I'll just pause and share with you because I can't go back and show them personally and specifically. Damn it, Samurai. I don't know about you guys, when I first went to Silithus, this is admittedly when it was first added forever ago, my first thought was, oh my god, it's the Zerg. I kid you not, that was literally my thought. I actually thought they were going into crossover territory, and the Zerg had landed on Azeroth, and that's exactly what it was. And you can call me a loser and a geek or whatever else you want to, but I thought that was awesome. I actually thought it was really cool that they were going to add the Zerg into WoW, and that's not what they did. You could argue that the Silithids are kind of Zerg-like, but eh. By the way, in defense of vanilla, I speak ill of vanilla a lot. Vanilla was a breath of fresh air in the MMO market. It was something brand new. It was something exciting and interesting and fun. There's a reason I bought the game day of, even after playing the beta and the alpha. There's a reason I was just like, yes! There's a reason basically every single one of my friends bought the game. There's a reason WoW became as big as it did. I say vanilla is bad with the perspective of now. But that's with all the changes that have happened over literally 11 years of development and gaming history. 11 years ago, vanilla was amazing. So don't mistake me for disliking vanilla. I admittedly get a little bit tired of some people saying vanilla is how the game should be, because most of the people who say that don't actually have an argument to give. They're just whining and complaining without actually giving reason or purpose behind their discussion. I have heard a couple of people who've given legitimate reasons why they think vanilla is better, and I actually, I can go with that. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah. Of course the Zerg would fight the Legion. Why wouldn't they? Hell, I'd fight the Legion. I just realized I have no gold hairpins either. Wait, what? Oh, crap. I've only had one X-Bag on this whole time. Rips. Oh, well. Let's give you an X-Bag. And you an X-Bag. Oops, that's not an X-Bag. Actually, that's stupid. Let's give you, I don't know, sprint shoes, because it doesn't matter. One argument I've heard that is, to be blunt, false, is look at how many people play private servers that are WoW Vanilla. Now, the reason I say that's false is because those servers are not WoW Vanilla. Now, I know you're going to like, well, what do you mean? They have it set to WoW Vanilla. Well, no, they started with WoW Vanilla, and then they were like, well, let's mod it, and let's add custom quests, and let's add custom items, and let's add all these additional features that you can do in a private server. That's not WoW Vanilla, guys. It is based on WoW Vanilla. You gotta keep things in a little bit of perspective here. I've heard people quote, thousands of people play WoW Vanilla on private servers. No, thousands of people play WoW private servers. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Well, I mean, there's obvious legal problems with that, but I'm just saying preference-wise, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, Baronessa, that's actually a pretty good example. I remember beta testing City of Heroes when it first came out, or was coming out, and to be blunt, I didn't like it that much. In the beta of City of Heroes, I was just, It wasn't until the game had been out for, I think, about a year that I finally went back to it and was like, oh, this is actually really cool. I think PAX dragged me back to that one. And yes, Prog, I'm farming dinosaurs, and we'll be farming for a little bit more. The goal is to hit level 40 in average party level, which I'm very close to, as you can see. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. I'm surprised my lunch is not here yet. I don't wish to sound like I am complaining, but this is part of why I didn't want to go to Fuddruckers, by the way, because Fuddruckers is 500 billion miles that way. There's one, from here, the nearest one from here, and I kid you not. There's the one that they're going to. The next nearest one after that is a 6-hour drive that away. That's not a joke. There's only the one Fuddruckers, and it's pretty recently opened. In fact, it opened August 11th. So, yeah. Wow, Permeus. Yeah, a lot of people back in the day also didn't realize that that certain areas you don't actually have to be the level to go do quests there. There is such a thing as the red line and the orange line. For those of you not aware, you can go straight to BC at level 58. You don't actually have to get all the way to 60. Yeah, there was a lot more social aspect to WoW back in vanilla, and I'll freely admit this. This is also true in BC. I distinctly remember standing around in Ironforge for hours and hours, just chatting with people or trading or trying to get a group together. I remember some bad things about vanilla too. Trying to get a group together, getting a group together, finding out you don't actually have the key for Lobris. 3 people leave, trying to get a group together. Anyways. I also remember playing a paladin in vanilla. God, why did I ever do that to myself? I remember raiding as a paladin in vanilla. Ugh. One of the other things that was kind of neat back in vanilla was there was a rule. Only a little bit. I only played Tibia a tiny little bit. Hadn't actually done much with it. I was really into the big 3. Excuse me, the big 4. Neverwinter Nights, Ultima Online, EverQuest, and Asheron's Call. Yes, I can, Psychotic. That is actually possible. I'm amazed these guys have not meteored me yet. I really am. Just, wow. What was I saying? Lost my train of thought. Not that I am aware, Brother Box. I have no... No. I'm just going to say it flat. No is the answer to your question. And that is all I'm going to say on that. In fact, another tour video is going to go live tomorrow. God, EverQuest, the game that doesn't have a leash mechanic. But I don't want to get too much. Oh, we're all level 40. Okay. All right. We're officially level 40. I've actually done all this grinding on camera. I'm sorry, guys. I meant to do this off. I'm actually going to go ahead and pause the stream for a bit, mostly for the YouTube side of things, because it's already a 3.5-hour video. So I will be back at some point, probably after I've eaten lunch, and then we will see some more of the World of Rune. So I'll see you in a few, guys.